It is 6:42 p.m. We have a quorum, and this meeting has been duly posted. Good evening and welcome to the public hearing meeting of the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees. Please stand and join us for a moment of silence and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and a salute to the Texas flag. Trustees present, starting on your left and my right, are Trustee Mackey, Trustee Flores, Trustee Mitchkay, Trustee Garcia, Trustee Solis, Trustee Marshall. Our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Michael Hinojosa, joins us, and I'm Justin Henry, Board President. Trustee Flores, could you do us the honors?
Buenas noches. Si hay alguien que necesita los servicios de un intérprete, aquí el joven o la señorita que están afuera les pueden ayudar con el equipo. Gracias.
Our agenda now calls for the public forum segment of our meeting. However, I was informed no one signed up to speak. We're going to start for this meeting. We have a subsequent meeting. We're going to begin with discussion items 4.01, discussion of targeted improvement plans for improvement required schools.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Chuck Chudnovsky will carry us through the required presentation for this public hearing.
The presentation begins with, for the F, the D, or D in a domain, targeted improvement plans. According to the Education Code, if the performance of any campus has been assigned an overall F or D in a domain or a D rating, the campus must develop an individual targeted improvement plan that is presented at a public hearing and approved by the Board of Trustees. The schools included in this are our 7 F-rated Year 1 campuses, our 12 D campuses, and 49 schools, 28 elementaries, 13 middle schools, and 8 high schools that received a D in one of the domains. The overarching problem from all of these plans is to increase academic performance and growth among all the students. The strategies that you will find within all of these plans primarily had a theme within 3 areas: developing and promoting instructional excellence on the campus, developing stronger systems and structures, and distributive leadership.
Trustees, are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Now moving on to agenda item 4.02. All right, that was for both of them. So the time is 6:46 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned. It is 6:46 p.m. We have a quorum. This meeting has been duly posted. Good evening and welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Dallas Independent. Good evening and welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees. We've already done the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the flag. I'm not going to reintroduce the trustees. Trustee Flores, will you do the honors one more time, please?
Of course. Si alguien necesita los servicios de un intérprete, la señorita que está aquí afuera les puede ayudar con el equipo. Gracias.
At this time, I would like to recognize any elected or public officials in the audience. I don't see any. Are there any in the audience? Please raise your hand. Okay, trustees, there are no recognitions tonight. Our agenda now calls for the public forum segment of our meeting. We'll begin with the speakers to agenda items, followed by the speakers to non-agenda items. To ensure that this meeting is held in an orderly manner, I'm asking speakers to please refrain from using individual names and to address the board and not individual trustees. Ms. Scully, will you call the names of the speakers?
Yes. I would like to remind speakers that you will have 3 minutes to speak. When you arrive at the microphone, please state your name and address. Our first speaker is Eustace Barker, followed by Bill Betson. Right, I don't know.
Hello, my name is Yusuf Baker. You stated that you wanted my address. Can I get some clarification on that?
You don't have to state your address. Students doesn't have to state their address.
Okay, thank you. As I said, my name is Yusuf Baker. I am a student at Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, and I speak on behalf of the DISD students who are opposed to the immediate introduction of the new policy regarding class rank. We have shifted from a system that includes a myriad of AP and dual credit classes as factors in rank to one that only takes into account a narrow range of 4 science, 4 math, 4 English, and 3 social studies classes. Many of us students recognized in the first few months of our high school careers that we could capitalize on the old system by working hard. We could take classes such as psychology, sociology, and AP art history to boost our rank. We foresaw that our meticulous selection of classes would be beneficial to us in the long run, for instance, in attracting colleges and scholarship opportunities. Given the recent change in the system, those of us who worked hardest to achieve what we have are being punished commensurately. Our conscientious participation in non-required classes has been rendered futile in the wake of this betrayal of one of our country's most highly held values, namely hard work. What we get out of the thousands of hours we have collectively put into our education has been precipitously reduced, additionally giving way to discouragement. For these reasons, we petitioned that the new ranking system be moved to begin with a graduating class of 2024, that is, next fall's freshman class. Now, we understand the reasons behind the implementation of the new system, the leveling of the playing field and the elimination of unfair advantages across different cohorts of students are noble strides toward fairness, which is why we are not petitioning for the outright dissolution of the system at large. However, shoving this policy into the faces of those who have for years been diligently working under a different one is an ironic reversal of fairness, as those who have climbed to the top through sleepless nights, literal tears, financial costs, and other burdens are being cast down from their hard-earned places, their efforts made even laughable, as those who have not applied themselves as much may rise to the top. If our goal is a level playing field, if our goal is to foster a healthy competition, if our goal is success for those who have contributed most to achieve, then starting the new policy with this year's juniors, sophomores, or even freshmen is not the way to go about it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we urge you to save the system for next year's freshmen. Thank you.
Bill Betson, followed by Nancy Rodriguez.
Howdy, Bill Betson, 6717 Cliffwood, Dallas. You have in front of you a sheet of paper with a spreadsheet on it, 6 rows of numbers and 7 columns. So it's not a lot of data, but it's powerful. We're going to talk about the teacher's average salary by school since 2015-16 through 17-18, the first 3 years of TEI. Now, there's a lot of stuff on this sheet. I'm not going to go over all of it, but I want to talk about the first study I did with this data, taking the 19 wealthiest schools in Dallas and comparing them with the 210 plus that have poverty levels over 70%. The difference between those two groupings back in 2015-16 was only an average salary of $423 that was higher in the rich schools. We've known that's a pattern in Dallas. But now, 3 years later, that difference exploded 9-fold to $3,953. So now the wealthier schools have an average teacher who's getting $3,500 more than all the 210 plus poor schools in Dallas. The study that this is a part of, I'm looking at the 3 whitest schools in Dallas: Lakewood, Mockingbird, and Travis Middle School. When you look at those salaries and how they have jumped, you see a major problem. Those salaries have gone up $9,607 per teacher to a final salary of the teachers in these 3 schools that is actually over $11,000 more per year than all the teachers in all of DISD. And I hadn't even removed these schools from the calculations, which would make it even worse. So you can see what was happening. TEI is taking money away from high poverty and putting them in the rich schools. The final thing, I compared these 3 schools with one school I know is one of the best in the district. That's the Young Women's Smart Academy in Balch Springs. And I compared the salary raises there. That school had salaries that only went up $5,316, over $4,000 less than the 3 white schools. Okay, you talk about a cheap performance. Those 3 schools, the 3 white schools, have an average SEI that is only 52.1. But the Young Women's Smart Academy in Balch Springs has one of the highest SEI averages in the district, 60.2. That is a value-added measurement we need to pay attention to. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Rodriguez, followed by Janet Shuey.
Nancy Rodriguez, 6725 Bobolink Drive. A nonverbal child is a constant worry. They can't tell you if they are hungry, uncomfortable, or in pain. They can't tell you if someone's insulted them or hurt them. They can't tell you how much they love going to school or how much they love their teacher. They can't tell you if they had a hard day or if they did something fun. Parents and teachers have to learn to read the clues. Parents become experts at understanding their child's mood and behavior, but that's not to say they have all the answers or that they can extrapolate the details. Maybe it's wrong to think that someone is hurting your child when they scream and cry and refuse to get on the bus. But as a parent, your inclination is to think the worst. Why is he doing this now? He didn't do this last year. Why is he wetting the bed? Why has she started hurting herself or hurting others? The questions are inexhaustible. They are endless and weigh heavy on the heart of a parent whose life is taken over by the fear of what will happen to my child when I'm gone. Put yourself in this parent's shoes. Wrap yourself in the cloak of uncertainty and ask yourself, what would I do? What would give me peace of mind if that were my child? Being able to view video in certain instances is helpful, but only if there is a video to view. Take the extra step for these children whose welfare and education are entrusted to you and place a camera in every contained class. Invest in the safety of your students the way you do with metal detectors, and know that a safe environment is an environment where learning can thrive. Tener un hijo que no habla es una preocupación constante. No te pueden decir si tienen hambre, si están incómodos o tienen dolor. No te pueden decir cómo le encanta la escuela ni tanto que quieren su maestra. Los padres se hacen expertos en el comportamiento y humor de sus hijos, pero todavía faltan muchos detalles. Quizás es mal pensar que alguien está golpeando a su hijo cuando grita y llora y no se quiere subir al bus, pero como padre uno piensa lo peor. ¿Por qué está haciendo esto? ¿Qué pasó que no se quiere ir a la escuela? ¿Por qué ahora moja la cama? Las preguntas son inagotables y el miedo pesa mucho en el corazón. Pregúntense, ¿qué haría yo si este fuera mi hijo? ¿Qué me daría tranquilidad? Tomen el paso de poner las cámaras en cada salón de educación especial. Tomen acción para asegurar la seguridad y bienestar de los estudiantes que están confiados a ustedes. Un ambiente seguro es un ambiente donde prospera el aprendizaje. Thank you for your time.
Janet Shuey. Janet Shuey.
Good evening. I am Janet Shuey, a student at the Law Magnet High School in Dallas ISD. I've organized the students who will speak to you tonight on sustainability and climate change. Essentially, we are asking the Dallas ISD Board of Trustees to convert the wonderful words on your energy and sustainability webpage into reality in the schools. We learn from United Nations climate reports, NASA findings, and even in school about what is causing climate change and the resulting catastrophic consequences, which include loss of biodiversity, so great that is being termed the sixth mass extinction, ocean acidification, which is threatening one of the most vital marine habitats, coral reefs, and more frequent and more severe weather events that are expected to displace millions within the next decade. All of these and more will adversely affect every aspect of our lives in the future. Yet when we look around the school, all we see is business as usual. It is as if you don't realize, you don't believe you have any responsibility for the causes of the climate change we all face. No, you're not solely to blame, but you, like every adult alive, have played your part in contributing to climate change and continue to do so by your inaction. You are the leaders of the school district. It is your responsibility to be forward-thinking and planning ahead to help us secure a livable and prosperous future. And yet the policies you have in place today are not causing the school administration to consider how their daily decisions will reduce the district's contribution to the causes of climate change. We are going to ask you tonight to change the status quo. First, by joining with the City of Dallas, now writing the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan, and write the district's own climate action plan to put the district on a path to a zero carbon footprint. That plan will call for using renewable electric energy for operating buildings, moving steadily to a bus fleet of all electric school buses, purchasing only electric staff and service vehicles, designing all new buildings to the LEED Gold standard or better, and mapping a path to making economic retrofits on all older schools to move them closer to zero energy buildings. We no longer want to eat meals with single-use plastic utensils and dishes that go straight to the landfill. We no longer want to see the waste food stream go into the trash, also headed to a landfill every single day. We want to recycle in a way that is economically viable and produces a clean, recycled food stream, recycled stream. In short, we want a school that not only imparts a good education like we are getting now, but also teaches us through example and ways and actions that we can take and what we all must do to stop adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, causing additional climate warming. Thank you. Please provide the leadership we seek.
Thank you. Elizabeth Velasquez is not here tonight. So our next speaker is Richard Herrera, followed by Brendan Hernandez.
Hello. Richard Herrera from the Law Magnet. In 2018, more than 119 million gallons of sewage overflowed onto the streets and lakes of Dallas-Fort Worth. That's 119 million gallons, with 25 million gallons coming from the Trinity River alone. This is more than 5 times the amount of all other combined sewage overflow incidents in all 15 regions of the country combined. I currently attend a school that is right by the Trinity River. And the effects of this are well known. Discharge from combined sewage overflows often cause property damage and create health problems for anyone exposed to the untreated sewage and wastewater. CSO discharge can also carry bacteria, intestinal worms, protozoa, and viruses. The city of Dallas is a thriving metropolitan region and the 9th largest city in the country. According to Professor Bryan Stone, Dallas is heating up faster than any other city in the country other than Phoenix, Arizona, and Louisville, Kentucky. Why? There's more than 35% of our city is created of impervious surface. One solution to mitigate this is to implement green roofs, which provide the following benefits. 1, Unlike traditional black tar roofs, green roofs reduce energy costs by absorbing heat instead of attracting it and providing natural insulation for buildings. 2, green roofs help reduce the urban heat island effect, a condition in which urban environments absorb and trap heat. 3, a green roof removes air particulates and produce oxygen and provide shade. Additionally, this natural protection against extreme heat enables green roofs to last twice as long as regular black tar roofs. Lastly, 4, another important benefit of green roofs is their ability to reduce and slow combined sewage overflow as a result of stormwater runoff. Because rooftops and streets in cities are hard surfaces, the volume and the velocity of stormwater runoff increases tremendously and is a major source of flooding and pollution worldwide. Thus, I urge Dallas to implement green roofs in all DISD high schools. Dallas would not be the first city to follow this path. In fact, on Monday, April 22nd, the New York City Council approved the Climate Mobilization Act, which drastically improved the energy efficiency of New York City. Implementing green roofs would not only save DISD thousands of dollars in the long run, but it would reduce the combined sewage overflow and mitigate the urban heat island effect. I urge you to take action now, and please consider what I have presented today. Thank you.
Brendan Hernandez, followed by Joey Gomez.
I'm Brendan Hernandez, a student at the School of Science and Engineering at Townview Magnet Center in Dallas ISD. I'm here today to ask the Board of Directors to immediately begin to move the carbon footprint of the district toward the goal of zero. Why worry about our carbon footprint, you may ask? For starters, it is a scientifically proven fact that human activity, which adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, is the largest and most urgent reason climate change is occurring, followed by much smaller contributors that can be addressed later. Secondly, weather experts agree that a warming climate will make extreme weather events more frequent and last longer. Think of the 10 tornadoes earlier this month that destroyed our schools. And third, this adverse climate will continue to worsen and persist until we lower the carbon dioxide concentration well below 350 parts per million in the atmosphere. Today, the carbon dioxide concentration is 415 parts per million, and it continues to rise rapidly. The rate of climate change is increasing faster than anyone predicted. Dallas ISD contributes to this problem by doing business as usual and not joining in with the City of Dallas in preparing its own climate action plan to aggressively address the causes of climate change. Your business as usual attitude ignores the fact that the fossil fuel-based energy the ISD uses to run the school system is producing the carbon dioxide that is the source of the accelerating climate destruction that will adversely affect every child being educated for the rest of their lives. Students are beginning to ask, why bother with education if our educators are deliberately ignoring their contribution to destroying the climate and our future? It is past time for you trustees to shoulder your responsibilities for the climate event we are learning about in school. We, the students, demand you lead us, the school district administration, and the community by creating policies that will push Dallas ISD to demonstrate how to address climate change with the actions the school district takes to move us away from fossil fuels. I hope you will not continue to neglect your duties. Write a climate action plan now to push towards a zero carbon footprint and start implementing it immediately. Thank you.
Joey Gomez, followed by Jonathan Cartwright.
Hello, my name is Joey Gomez, a student at the School of Health Professions at Townview Magnet Center. I am asking the Dallas ISD Board of Trustees to immediately begin to move the school district toward using electricity generated by newly built renewable energy facilities. Today, in Texas, 70% of the grid energy is generated with fossil fuels that adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. We know that there is a scientific consensus that the excess carbon dioxide humans are adding to the atmosphere is the predominant reason the climate is warming and causing more frequent and more severe weather events. Your continuing practice of purchasing grid power is doing little to move us towards 100% carbon-free electricity in Texas. For example, this year, the district turned down an opportunity to purchase 50% of its electric power from newly built renewable sources at 3 cents per kilowatt hour in favor of doing what you've always done. Even adding transmission charges from the Northern Hub 3 cents per kilowatt hour would have been a large savings compared to the 8 cents kilowatt hour DISD's website shows that it's charged and that my parents' taxes pay now. Since you decided against zero capital option offered by the state to purchase solar electricity, students are asking you to install solar panels on all of our schools. Start with the new schools and buildings that you are planning to build. Every flat roof and parking lot could be economically fitted with solar panels. Even a used car lot in McKinney is now covered with solar panels to generate power for the used car company. Last year, the State Energy Conservation Office announced that solar energy was the cheapest energy in Texas. Even more significant is that solar power is delivered during the hottest part of the day when grid power is the most expensive. Battery storage should be added to every building to save excess renewable energy and use it when solar power declines from a passing cloud or as the sunset approaches. Many options for securing the capital for the renewable solar installations are described at gosolartexas.org. Besides grant options, there is still the State Energy Conservation Office, Texas Lone Star revolving loan program that lends capital to school districts at extremely low rates to be paid back through the savings from using renewable energy. The State Energy Conservation Office provides free assistance to help guide the school district in making the technical decisions. All that is lacking is your will to assume your responsibility to lead the district to a clean, renewable energy future. Thank you.
Jonathan Cartwright, followed by Drew Easley.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Cartwright, and I'm a senior from TAG at Townview. A couple of months ago, I spoke here to urge Dallas ISD to convert to an electric bus fleet at a rate of 100 buses per year for 10 years, and to obtain a renewable electricity provider for them using bond money. Today brings me back to encourage the same thing. In the 56 days since that last meeting, Dallas emitted approximately 3.3 million metric tons of greenhouse gases, and we are now 56 days deeper in a climate catastrophe. But I don't want to stand up here just to recite mind-boggling facts. Of course, Dallas ISD is not solely responsible for these figures, but we do contribute to climate change, especially through our diesel-burning school buses. Think back to when you were a student who rode on the school bus. Do you remember the metallic squeak of its doors opening for students and the cough of the engine when it lurched back into motion? Do you remember holding your breath as the bus rattled up to the concrete curb because its fumes smelled terrible? Do you remember smelling the fumes wafting in from some open window, even as you rode the bus? When we ride the school bus, indeed, whenever we are even near one, we are ingesting fine diesel particles, which have been linked to causing lung cancer. The diesel from these engines have also been linked to causing asthma, and the Dallas Morning News reports that Dallas ISD schools have higher asthma rates than the rest of the US. Even if these facts weren't true, the carbon dioxide released by the 1,000 Dallas ISD school buses contributes significantly to climate change, which causes incalculable suffering for millions of people, especially for poorer communities and minorities. I wish as much as you do that these facts just weren't true, but they are, and we have got to act to fix it. Yes, all electric school buses and a renewable electricity provider would be more expensive at first. It would be an investment for Dallas ISD, but in the long run, it would pay off in numerous ways. Electric energy, especially wind and solar, is more stable on the market and is fast becoming cheaper. And the extra cost of the buses would quickly be offset by fuel and maintenance savings. Additionally, the reduction of diesel particulates may decrease visits to school nurses, saving Dallas ISD money. All in all, it would be a win-win to convert to an electric bus fleet over the next 10 years. It's a daunting task, but a necessary one. Let's be honest, the path to a sustainable future begins with our schools. You are a role model to the students, and we must start somewhere to prevent this catastrophe. Please, convert to all-electric buses and set an example for your thousands of students aspiring to be leaders themselves. Thank you.
Drew Easley, followed by Edgar Grimaldo.
Hello, I am Drew Easley from the Townview Law Magnet. So today I'm asking the Dallas ISD Board of Trustees to implement an actual recycling program into our schools. Today in my school, next to nothing is recycled. Students have never been trained to recycle with the goal of producing high-quality stream of materials that can be economically recycled. A partnership between the recycler, the students, and the school has to determine how to be financially successful. Students have to be included because students are going to have to change their recycling behavior. Not everything is recyclable, and an item that can be recycled must be clean and dry. Right now, many of our classrooms don't even have a recycling bin in them. And even when they do, students have not been educated on how to recycle properly. And they don't know how to use the recycling bins correctly. And even in our dumpsters, trash is commonly thrown into the recycling bins. And there's no way the recycling is being dealt with the way it's meant to be. Now, what appears to be low-hanging fruit is recycling office paper collected in classrooms and offices. Plastic drink bottles are next. Recycling in the cafeteria will be tricky because there are multiple streams of material to deal with. First in the cafeteria is excess food from the serving line and kitchen that could be easily eaten if it was in the correct hands, such as a nonprofit providing meals to the needy. There are new blockchain technologies that are providing the logistics and tracking solutions to successfully deal with that challenge. Next in the cafeteria is the food and dirty paper waste that can be composted. The city of Plano has solved this problem already. We should stop believing DISD has all the good ideas and talk to and learn from others who have been concerned with these problems and dealt with them in their own ways. Finally, there is the ocean of single-use plastic eating utensils that are filling up our landfills. Every single plastic item we throw away will last centuries or longer because plastic does not decompose in the natural world. The current single-use plastic model is not sustainable. We must re-examine this entire culture to find a new system that is sustainable. And there are seemingly simple solutions to this. For example, we can use wooden utensils. We can use reusable utensils that can be used again. And it might be more expensive, but in the long run, it will save money because we won't have to buy more, and it will be investing in the future of our world. But none of this will happen unless you, the Board of Trustees and DISD, sets in place a policy that everybody, from top administrators to students, must make daily decisions to make our schools sustainable. Please provide us with the leadership DISD needs to stop business as usual and act sustainably, because there are consequences in the natural world for our behavior today. And I know that all of you truly care about these issues. All we're asking is that you be the change that you have the power to implement that will help us mitigate these problems that we're facing right now. Thank you.
Edgar Grimaldo, followed by Kevin Harris.
Hello, my name is Edgar Grimaldo, a student at Health and Professions. I am here today to share with you some of the consequences that have flowed from the Dallas ISD administration this year in the absence of any climate action policy from the Board of Trustees. In February, climate action groups met with the operations CEO and alerted him and his staff of the opportunity to apply for some of the Volkswagen's mitigation funds to purchase electric school buses. Multiple offers were made to help the district complete the paperwork to apply for funds with no reply from the district. The programs would have paid 80% of the price of the new buses and charging equipment. The project had such low priority, the administration waited until the last 5 days of the first come, first serve funds until they were exhausted. In February, climate action groups explained how the district could participate with other state agencies to purchase renewable energy at 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Even with transmission charges from the Northern Hub, that would have been much cheaper than the 8 cents a kilowatt hour. The district website advertised paying with electricity now. The district refused to join with other state agencies to purchase renewable energy. In the spirit of business as usual, the district hired Van Brunt and Associates Incorporated, this long-time energy consultant, to secure a contract from Grid Power. In keeping with the standard district practice, that electricity contract is being shielded from public scrutiny. but even my principal hadn't been able to get across, so we students can have a look at it. Dallas ISD administration had a reputation of not being cooperative with anybody on the subject of caring for the natural environment and climate. That attitude is extended to the city of Dallas that is writing a climate action plan and reported from many environmental and climate action groups. I and the students of Dallas are asking you to change the focus of the school district administration, include concerns for the natural environment and our impact on climate change. Once you establish the appropriate policies, your capable administration will begin to faithfully implement those policies and become more a part of the solution and not a part of the climate problem. Thank you.
Kevin Harris, followed by Amy Tawil.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Harris, and I am a senior from W.W. Samuel High School. It is my pleasure to speak in front of all of you tonight about a problem that has been plaguing DISD for years: teacher turnover. Approximately 95% of teacher demand is a result of teacher turnover, which is costing the county $80 million annually, according to a study done by Commit, a nonprofit organization whose sole purpose is improving education in Dallas County. And so this begs the question, why is the turnover rate so high? The answer is simple. Most teachers can't deal with the malarkey they get from both the students they work with and the administration they answer to for the third-rate salary they receive. The Teacher Excellence Initiative, the TEI, only exacerbates the problem by turning education into a game. And at the end of the day, it's not just the district that suffers. The students are victims too. Remember that $80 million annual cost? That money goes into scrambling for teachers to fill vacancies, often hiring substitutes to fill the ranks. I myself have experienced this. Back in September of this year, a history professor quit at Eastfield College, and my psychology teacher was the only teacher at Samuel who was qualified to fill the position. Fast forward, and here we are, well into November, without any replacement. The students, who were once learning from an engaging and qualified teacher, are now subjected to the endless rotation of substitutes who know nothing about the subject, let alone be qualified to teach it. And this is just my personal experience. How about we take a look at the English department, for example, where roughly half of the teachers that make up the department are gone by the end of the year. So to recap the problem, we have a system that discourages people from pursuing jobs in teaching, that makes it difficult to keep a job in teaching, and that provides zero support to the students and teachers who are put through these crises. Oh, and let's not forget that the teachers who stick with it through all of this nonsense are then told what and how to teach their own subject by policymakers who haven't taught a day in their lives. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that there's a problem. Teachers are hurting. The district is hurting. And most importantly, the students are hurting. I'm not a politician. I don't hold the answers to the district's problems. But I am one of the thousands of students afflicted by this epidemic, and I will use my voice to seek justice. I hope my voice has reached your ears tonight. Thank you.
Amy Tawil, followed by Fonwin Cipriano.
Hi, my name's Amy Tawil. I live at 1330 Rainbow Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75208. I have to applaud all the students here speaking tonight. It warms my heart that they are here, being a part of this process. And although I would like to speak about TEI tonight, like the speakers that you will hear in just a minute, tonight I'm here speaking on behalf of the unintended or the possible intended consequences resulting from the future renovation of Rosemont Upper Campus building. It appears that there's more planned than just updating the building. Seemingly without discussion, the district wants to move third grade from upper campus to lower campus. After asking administration and trustees, no one has been able to give a reasonable explanation for the move. Thankfully, Trustee Mackey was able to find out that the district thinks upper campus should move into the 4th through 8th grade model that is used by other schools in the district. Unfortunately, that won't work for Rosemont. The other schools in the district using a 4th through 8th grade model service their students from 4th to 8th grade. At Rosemont, we are a 3rd through 5th grade neighborhood school and a 6th through 8th grade magnet. So all of the 3rd through 5th grade students do not qualify and do not feed into the middle school. So this model does not and will not work for Rosemont Elementary. Thus, moving 3rd grade down to lower campus leaves our early learning campus not complying with the district model. There are no other pre-K-3 schools in this district, so one or the other of the Rosemont campuses is not going to fit into your models. We believe that pre-K-2 early learning environment is important for Rosemont's lower campus. It allows for unfettered learning, free from testing lockdown, restroom schedules, silent lunches, limited parent involvement, hallway monitors, all of which come with STAR testing. To move 3rd grade down to lower campus, we will have to reduce the number of sections at each grade level. Why does this make sense? Rosemont is a high-demand school meeting the superintendent's challenge to reclaim the middle class and to expand tuition-based pre-K. By moving 3rd grade down, this will put a stop to Rosemont's ability to achieve both of those initiatives. Additionally, to make space for 3rd grade at lower campus, the school will likely give up its dyslexia room, a program that services over 42 kindergarten through 2nd grade students. And there's also a possibility that the school will lose or have to share its special education resource room. The school is in the process of applying to be a STEAM D innovation school for 3rd through 5th grades. How does separating 3rd grade from that program benefit students or learning and this innovation program? The architectural plans presented...
Thank you, Mr. Will. Your time has expired. Fawn Wind Cipriano, followed by Andrew Kirk.
Speakers, I just want to remind you to please refrain from using individual names of the trustees and address the board as a whole. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Fungwin Cipriano, and I reside at 513 Worcester Lane, Garland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I've served in education for 13 years in the capacity of a general education reading teacher, a special education teacher, and a coach. Of those 13 years, I've spent 9 years in the elementary classroom and 4 years in the secondary classroom. I'm currently an 8th grade reading language arts teacher. I'm here to advocate and be a voice for my students and all students who are being over-tested. TEI is the main cause to the over-testing, which is negatively impacting our students. Our students are mentally distressed and are being inappropriately tested. With the constant testing, it's stressing our students out. The stress is manifesting in various ways in our students, such as testing anxiety, the decline in self-confidence, and the dangerous mindset of, I'm dumb because I keep failing tests. The relentless testing is breeding the stress in our students at an accelerated rate. In the past, student performance was measured by 6 weeks assessments, fall and spring ACPs, and STAR. However, this school year, student performance is measured by weekly tests, also known as Power DOLs, 3-week tests, also known as mini markers, in addition to the existing set of assessments. So essentially, our students are taking tests every week. These tests are STAR-style by design. Our students are absolutely burnt out by the end of the second 6 weeks. When they took the second 6 weeks common assessment, they did poorly because they were completely over it. And guess what happened? The pressure was increased for us teachers to slam our kids with data-driven instruction with more tests even more intensely. It's an endless vicious cycle. Furthermore, our students are being inappropriately tested with STAR-style assessments. Research shows that the reading STAR tests are poorly designed. According to the March 25th, 2019 Texas Monthly article, 8 different readability formulas show the test's reading portions are at a higher level of difficulty than appropriate for the grades they are assessing. Researchers at Texas A&M University discovered that for the most part, reading tests are given to students in grades 3 through 8 are at a level of difficulty at least 1 year above grade level, close quote. We have students who are already 1 to 3 school years behind on reading levels. TEI reduces the level of autonomy in the classroom to emphasize test prep. Instead of authentic learning and teaching, such as affirmed phonics, foundation, and guided reading at the elementary level to novel studies at the secondary level, there is a disproportionate focus on test prep. How can TEI truly stand up to its name of the Teacher Excellence Initiative when we are setting up our students for failure with the over-testing? Thank you.
Andrew Kirk, followed by Diane Birdwell.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kirk. Don Campbell, a scholar of educational measurement and assessment, said the following: "The more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision-making, the more subject it will be to corruption pressures and the more apt it will be to distort and corrupt the social processes it is intended to monitor. While Campbell was writing on the use of achievement tests in 1975, his words remain sadly relevant today. With the publication of Dallas ISD's National Association of Educational Progress, National Assessment, or NAEP results, so soon after the release of our STAR scores, the discrepancy between these metrics couldn't be any more glaring. It also couldn't be any more awkward for the proponents of TEI, APEI, and PEI who argue that these initiatives drove rapid improvement in district-wide learning outcomes. The discrepancies were predictable, however, given similar experiments with value-added measurement and standardization elsewhere. In Dallas, the NAEP data revealed that our district's learning outcomes are not just flat, but in fact regressing. I don't fault our teachers or campus administrators for this. They're just responding to perverse incentives created by a broken system of accountability in both our district and our state. That system rewards rote learning and instructional shortcuts that produce the illusion of rapid gains. These gains are essentially score inflation. Teachers are under intense pressure to raise STAR scores rapidly and are increasingly able to predict patterns in assessed content. When the assessment instrument changes, the growth largely disappears. These are Potemkin gains, not authentic learning. I ask you all to consider once again the opportunity costs of maintaining TEI, APEI, PEI, and similar initiatives. How many additional support staff, how many counselors, and how many librarians could we provide for our students? How many opportunities for academic enrichment have we forgone for this? How many students are experiencing anxiety related to their performance on our district's battery of assessments? TEI is no longer a reform. It represents the status quo in Dallas, and the reform itself now needs to be reformed. Thank you.
Diane Birdwell, followed by Lori Kirkpatrick.
Hi. Diane Birdwell, 5705 Meadowwick. You know me, I know you. Last December, I came before you asking for more funding for security monitors, police officers, and counselors. Y'all failed to listen to me. You didn't listen to that, but you voted over $3 million for teaching trust to tell us how many times to walk around our classroom. You spent $350,000 more for the 5th year in a row for a student survey that was not designed to be used to evaluate teachers for pay. How much is a student's life worth? How much is my life worth? Texas recommends a counselor for every 250 kids at the high school. We have 400 to 500 students for each counselor now. Monitors should be for every 400 students, but not the 599 we have now. Maybe your trustee, who's going to be the new rep at the Texas School Safety Center, can ask them about the ratios and what they should be. I see 10 officers tonight, police officers and monitors for this crowd. This is more than what you find at Skyline with 4,400 students. I'll be back on this topic soon because y'all are working on the budget now, but I want to tell you from a different angle. Let's talk about morale. The Dallas Morning News did the 100 best places to work in Dallas. Surprise, despite the fact the Dallas Morning News is your propaganda tool, y'all didn't make the cut, or shall I say we didn't make the cut. But Prosper did, Colleyville Grapevine did, and I gave y'all little sheets there. Y'all have homework. Please read the whole thing. If you read this, you will see how they did it. Container Store, y'all know the Container Store, the people that fund commit. A work environment that has people centric and motivating and fun. Prosper ISD, speaking of the convocation, for 2 hours we celebrate each other. Our district leaders motivate and encourage everyone to begin the year's work with expectations and spirit. Grapevine Colleyville, our 3 core values, our purpose, innovation, and community. A company called Service First Mortgage. We empower our team to do their job without micromanagement. And Web TPA, I love them. We never blame employees for our shortcomings. We see faults as a leadership miss. Morale and safety in an age of school shootings and school suicides and vaping overdoses. You have got to stop doing what Commit tells you, what Dallas Kids First tells you, what Educate Dallas tells you, and start listening to us. What we tell you, we are the experts in education. We, despite your smirks and smiles, we know more about education. We have been in the classroom. You need to listen to us. Being a student doesn't make you an expert. Being a teacher, a librarian, a counselor, a monitor, a cafeteria worker, a secretary, anything has taught more, has done more in education than most of you ever have or ever will. You need to listen to us, not commit. Thank you.
Lori Kirkpatrick, followed by Audrey Atkins.
Good evening, Lori Kirkpatrick. I reside at 6705 Brayburn Drive. My daughter's in the 5th grade. When she started in Dallas, we were told about all of the great corporate education reforms that were coming through, namely TEI and ACE, and this was going to drastically improve our educational outcomes. And in fact, you guys put out in the spring the STAR results that we got over the past 2 years, and that's on your handout. And in fact, if you look at that, great gains. Let's look at reading in 8th grade math. 8th grade reading and 8th grade math. Look at the meets category. 8th grade readers up 9%. 8th grade math students up 19%. But then NAEP came out in October, and if you look at that, we're actually regressing in 8th grade math. And if you turn it over and look at 8th grade reading, particularly broken out to low-income and minority findings, we're also regressing significantly. These two charts were done by the former Austin ISD school board president, who also is flummoxed by all of the hoopla over TEI and ACE. So it begs the question, the NAEP test is not predictable. You don't know who's going to take it. You don't know what's going to be on it, so there's no ability to prep for it. So it makes me wonder, is there test prep going on in the district? Is there pressure being put on the teachers to prep the students to get the STAR results that we have seen over the last 2 years? I would like to think that you would question that yourselves and maybe do a study and see if in fact there's something of that nature going on. Unintended consequences perhaps of TEI, because the teachers are evaluated on student achievement predominantly based on STAR results. My daughter's in the 5th grade. I think I mentioned that. I'm very concerned about her heading to the 8th grade looking at this. The last thing on this list, we can talk a little bit about the ACE program. ACE Campus is 1.0. There were 7 of them. Their 2019 results are listed here. Blanton, B. Mills, F. Lee, B. Peace, D. Edison, closed. Dade, D. Zumwalt, C. You might remember, some of you anyway, Dr. Michael Dryden worked in this district for 20 years in education, in evaluation and research, and we sent you a paper a couple of years ago about the ACE program. There was some misinformation put out by this district and expressed in Austin earlier this year and the year before. We told you that there were only 2 schools that performed well in the ACE program, only 2. And I think this proves our point. $5.4 million for 6 schools it cost.
Audrey Atkins, followed by Stuart Becker.
Hello, my name's Audrey Atkins. I'm at 422 South Marlboro, Dallas, 75208. Last year, my son's entire 3rd grade was taken into the auditorium and threatened by their teachers regarding what would happen to them if they didn't do well on the last 6 weeks' common assessment, which serves as a mock STAR test. Based on a plethora of student and parent statements I collected and later verified in a meeting with myself, the principal, and assistant principal by the teachers who were in the auditorium that day, the 3rd graders had begun raising their hands and asking questions like, what if I have soccer games on Saturdays? The teachers replied, well, you'll have to miss those if you do poorly on this test because you'll be in Saturday school. Another child raised his hand, and what if I have a birthday party Saturday? The teacher replied, you'll have to miss that too. The students left the auditorium scared and anxious and told their parents that evening what had transpired in the auditorium that day. My son said, Mommy, my teacher said if I don't do well, I won't get to pass 5th grade and I'll get held back and go to school on Saturdays. Is that true? My then 8-year-old son, a bright, talented, and gifted student, was awake until around midnight that night as he lay in bed awake, worrying about the idle threats the teachers had made that day. No matter how many times he called me into his room and asked me questions, nothing seemed to help him understand why his teachers, whom he trusts and looked up to, would be trying to scare him if those things weren't true. We chose to leave that very reputable DISD school, one that was actually on the graph that this gentleman presented earlier, and he has since begun a new DISD school this year. We opted out of STAR assessment last year due to what occurred, and will choose to do so for the duration of its existence. I have since begun the Facebook page for parents in DISD who want to learn how they can opt their children out of STAR. You can find my page on Facebook titled Dallas ISD Parents Opt Out of STAR. We are working diligently on behalf of our children to bring transparency to a system that is putting adult interests and dollars over our children's best interests. I don't blame the teachers who were in the auditorium that day. As a single mom myself, I know the challenges of living paycheck to paycheck and trying to do whatever you need to do to earn whatever bonus or pay raise or keep whatever job you have to improve your family's quality of life at a time when cost of living has far outpaced earnings. The dollars attached to this assessment are funneled down to our superintendent in a potential bonus, which is more than 5 to 6 times the average DISD teacher's salary. Funneled down again to our principals in a sizable amount of their potential earnings, and then again as what comprises merit pay for teachers based on how our children score on a simple assessment. These dollars I cite are the direct root cause of our teachers who are threatening children and the administrations who are there turning a blind eye while this toxic and unethical culture is not only now accepted as the norm, but grows worse each day it's allowed to continue.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Stuart Becker, followed by Christine DeRocha.
Hi, my name is Stuart Becker, and I live on 1702 North Jupiter Road, Garland, Texas. I am a 3-year veteran of teaching high school social studies in Dallas ISD. I am a member of Alliance AFT. I'm here tonight to talk about Teaching Trust. Teaching Trust and their Aspiring Leaders program claim that they want to build an aspirational school culture while supporting high-quality instruction in every classroom. That's what they promised. That's what you said you wanted. That's what you bought. But what is really happening is the rigid structure crushes creativity, demoralizes teachers, and narrows the curriculum, preventing kids from getting a full education. DISD has implemented a program called Look Forward, Look Back PLC, thanks to training from the Teaching Trust. In a traditional PLC meeting, teachers who have the same subject get together to coordinate and collaborate. They share ideas and lesson plans. They help construct assessments and quizzes. Whether you are an experienced teacher or a new one, we can all learn from each other. This is what is supposed to happen. Under Teaching Trust guidelines, though, teachers in the district are held to a strict script of what to say in what order during their own meeting. While we understand that backwards planning is a best practice, turning teachers into robots only to collect data on students is not genuine, authentic education. Teachers across the district are telling their unions that they are more stressed by their PLCs than anything else in the school day. Teachers across the district are saying that they spend more personal time planning for the PLCs and the scripted meetings than they do for their actual classes. In fact, teachers from across the district are telling us that the result of these meetings is a PowerPoint or some activity from which they cannot deviate, and all teachers are expected to teach the exact same thing the exact same way at the exact same time. Teachers are also being micromanaged to the point of making them plan their laps or walks around the class, with administrators and instructional coaches telling them that they have to walk around the class the exact same way, the exact same time, every time. Tell me how that improves learning for the kids. It kills creativity and eliminates differentiated instruction for the students. You have spent millions of tax dollars for Teaching Trust to ruin PLCs. Our creativity is completely gone, and kids suffer because stressed out robot teachers do not feel valued, they feel policed. Robots also don't build relationships with students nor inspire them. In summary, Teaching Trust is micromanagement, not pedagogy. It is a formula, not real teaching. It is a product out of a box on a shelf, not genuine education for our students. It is a total waste of money. Please reconsider this contract.
Christine DeRocha, followed by Jan Statamore.
Good evening. My name is Kristen DeRocha. I live at 10421 Benbrook Drive, Dallas, Texas 75228. I'm an 11-year veteran Dallas ISD teacher, and I spent 12 years as an entrepreneur, and I'm also a parent of 2 students in comprehensive neighborhood high schools in DISD. I'm here to ask you all to dig deeper into the numbers and take a critical look at the TEI evaluation system. It's an expensive system that is not equitable at all. It claims to be identifying the best and moving them to where they are most needed. But I have been collecting data on TEI for 4 years now, and I have not found much evidence that TEI is rewarding the most effective teachers equitably. What I seem to find consistently is that TEI rewards teachers of students who are good test takers and teachers of students who are less poor. Currently in the system, the top 25% or so of teachers are considered distinguished, and they are heavily concentrated at magnet schools where there's a test score entry requirement, and schools where there's less poverty. I looked at the numbers and found that the student to distinguished teacher ratio at magnets and low poverty schools is roughly 25 students to 1. But in the neighborhood schools, the ratio is 75 to 1. On average, magnet teachers make more than $10,000 more than teachers in neighborhood schools. What does this mean? Does this mean that the best teachers are in the magnets? In the schools with less poverty, like Hexter and Lakewood? Does this also mean that most of our student population are not being taught by the best? If this is the case, why aren't we moving distinguished teachers onto schools where there's a need for their expertise? Salary data paints a pretty stagnant 4-year picture, where the salary gains have been consistently in the specialty schools and in the elementary schools with more affluent populations. This is not equity. The truth is, most teachers don't want to move campuses. Teachers who are wonderful with talented and gifted kids should be able to stay put. Those of us who teach in more challenging populations want to stay with our kids in our neighborhoods, and we deserve to be paid fairly too. I'm highly concerned about teacher turnover and low morale in areas where kids need stability the most. In my own personal experience, teacher turnover where my 2 children go to school has been stunningly sad. I ask you today, why aren't you looking critically at this system when the numbers are so obvious? Thank you.
Jan Statamore, followed by Robert Lamont.
Jan Statamore, 4702 Veracruz. I've been teaching with Dallas ISD since 1993, 26 years. Back then, our salaries were on a step system. I trusted that my salary would increase as did the cost of living, and I just didn't concern myself with it. And the system provided that I could look ahead and have a rough idea of when I could expect an increase. I'm at a campus now where 16 years ago, I was handpicked to help grow our community. As the late Senator Elijah Cummings said, children are the living messengers to a future we will never see. And I knew I was touching that future. I was in my classroom having an impact. Shortly after helping open the school, I started teaching the siblings of former students, meeting with parents with whom I'd already enjoyed a strong relationship. Today, I can say that I've taught children whose parents are former students, and I am especially proud to be able to call the spouse of one of my former students a colleague. I am both proud and privileged to have had such an impact on my community. When TEI was initially implemented, I was selected by my principal to participate. I was in the first wave of DTR teachers, high side of Proficient 2, merely 2 points shy of Proficient 3. So close. I decided to really investigate where I could make up those 2 points, do everything I could to increase my score and hit Proficient 3, and then I could really provide a bump in my salary. In my second year, my student survey responses were higher than the previous, but my points awarded were lower. This is the same survey which, by the way, asks 8-year-olds if their teachers really mean it when they ask them how they're doing. I contacted TEI to ask for a rubric for the following year so I could see just how it worked, and I was told that the rubric didn't exist until the numbers came out. Again, 26 years I've been teaching. That isn't how a rubric works at all. By the way, my STAR scores had also increased that year. You are creating a moving target each year to make it more difficult for teachers to qualify for higher ratings and hence higher pay. This system of evaluation is destructive. The numbers mean nothing as they pertain to goals that can be set for the following year. It pits teachers against each other in that while one teacher gets an increase for reaching level X, another teacher at level X does not. We are less collaborative, less creative, less focused on the growth of the whole student. The system shows no evidence of any real concern for our primary stakeholders, our families, our community. The recent National Assessment of Educational Progress results show student learning has plummeted since TEI has been enacted. Student scores on the NAEP continue to decline, while at the same time DISD continues to tout rising STAR scores. How can this be? Ask any teacher and they'll tell you it's because under TEI we are being forced to teach to the test. We are educating our kids to do one specific thing: score high on STAR tests. I want to teach my kids to read, write, and think critically. Sadly, these values do not seem to be shared by DISD. I urge the board to listen to their educators and stop the DISD trend of encouraging our teachers to teach to the test. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Robert Lamont, followed by Janice Wilson. Robert Lamont, Janice Wilson, followed by Vicki Tillery.
To Dr. Hinojosa and the trustees of the board, thank you for your years of service. My name is Janice Wilson, 7373 Valley View Lane, Dallas, Texas. I am a retired, rehired, gifted, and talented teacher at Frederick Douglass Elementary. I stand before you tonight to serve as an advocate for the precious minds of all children, especially the low SES who attend DISD. I have witnessed this district go all the way up the ladder of success, where students enjoyed learning, involved in hands-on experiences, field trips, classroom speakers, students competing at state and district-wide competitions, coming out as winners. But under the vicious TEI, enrollment is declining, several schools receiving F ratings, parent involvement continues to decline, and total student and teacher burnout. It saddens me to have to witness daily students being stripped of opportunities to be analytical, critical, and creative thinkers. If the renowned B.B. King's guitar Lucille could sing, it would say, "The thrill is gone. Bye-bye, TEI." Now is the time to remove the ostentatious suits who enter buildings with one mission: to disrupt the course of instruction, leaving an aroma of fear at will. How long would this degrading evaluation system take away the excellence of teaching all students? In the words of a former student I had back in 2012, he stood before 20,000 members and he asked the question, "Do you believe in me? Like I believe in me?" Well, guess what? If you truly believed, then you will listen to the words that have been placed before you. TEI has brought a dismal, dark cloud over students' learning. I beseech you to revisit replacing the TEI evaluation rating system, restore the beauty and power of true learning back in the hands of the classroom teacher. I invite you to work with highly qualified members. You see us standing up here in the red. We're called the Alliance Federation of Teachers, to find a better evaluation system that will give back and continue to deplete the educational learning structure. Please explain to our students, where's the excellence in our initiatives in TEI for their well-being? I speak on the side of justice for all students to read with comprehension, learn basic mathematical operations, know the foundation to why they can believe in those
Your
who
time
make
has
the decision.
expired.
Thank you for your time.
Vicki Tillery, followed by Ewan Blackman.
Oh, I'm short.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Tillery. I live at 3101 Concord Drive in Mesquite, Texas, but I am a product of Dallas ISD. I did graduate from Dallas Samuel. I would like to address TEI and how it has not contributed to the equality in the district. I am a DTR teacher. I did it by teaching ninth grade biology that is tested in STAR and ACP. And what I had to do was cross every T, dot every J, and dot every I to jump through every hoop so that I could get DTR. I have over 32 years of experience in DISD. I started my life in DISD at Adamson High School. And from there, I went to Samuel and then to Bryan Adams. And I have loved every single minute, every single hour, every single day of teaching in the classroom, and that's why I'm still there. People have asked me, why don't you move on? Become an administrator, become an instructional coach. I tell them no, I need to be where I can be of service to the child because that's what I was meant to do. I have been loyal to this district. I have over 269 sick days. That also means that I've given away 30 when we used to be allowed to do that. I am there every day, but I take care of myself. I don't go to school sick. When I attained DTR, I was hoping, hey, I'm going to get a raise, maybe a little bit of a bump. Well, I got a 2% raise because everybody did, because TEI was only going to give me $14 because I was already at the top of my pay scale. So I'm still waiting, and I'm proficient too, but you keep moving the goalpost. You keep moving it further and further and further away. And so for the first time in 32 years, I am seriously looking at moving to another district that is willing to pay me for my expertise, for my knowledge that I have, because I could go to other districts and make $69,000, $72,000, $74,000, and you would sit there and say, well, why don't you go? The reason I'm staying is because Dallas kids, I love them. That's where I need to be. I'm a product of DISD. I lived in DISD in Dallas until I had a home invasion that almost killed me, and then I had to move. I want to stay where I am, but I deserve to be paid for what I do. I have taught ninth grade for 32 years. Please reevaluate TEI.
Ewan Blackman, followed by Shawana Washington.
My name is Ewan Blackman. I live at 611 Birch, Richardson, Texas, 75081. The TEI, or as I call it, the Teacher Exodus Initiative. Why are teachers leaving? Ask me. I left 7 days ago. I left with 16 years of experience. Micro mismanagement. Data, data, data. The old adage was there's lies, absolute lies, and statistics. But now somebody pulled out a thesaurus and found the synonym for statistics. It's data. We have become data-wise and student-foolish. Our students are robbed of an enriching learning environment by teachers having to look back, look forward, do CAs, ACPs, DOLs, power DOLs, and finally our students are SOL. If the data in the media is to be believed, the Dallas Morning News and TV, the double-digit gains of the translation into student learning, then I'm here to tell you that it is not happening. Basic math outside of STAR is a foreign concept. I know because I teach physics, pre-AP physics, at both the high school and the collegiate level, or I did up until 7 days ago. Add 7 plus 5 plus 7. My students couldn't, and that's why we take out trigonometry from basic physics. Test and punish. We want to add another acronym, T and P. Teachers are forced to put up answer keys so their students can score well for 1 minute, so the students can score well on these tests, so you have this data that looks better than, so the teachers don't have to write out and script all their lessons so they know what's going on. And yay, before you think I am just some disgruntled employee and couldn't connect with my diverse, low socioeconomic students, and I would like to point out some of the wonderful words that my amazing students used to describe. These are the letters my students gave me after just 2 months teaching them. You're the best teacher I ever had. You taught us more than just physics. You didn't focus just on education, but you focused and cared about our lives. You opened my eyes to other possibilities. You taught me how to think outside the box. You broadened my mind. Each quote is from a different student. Let's go on to professional learning communities. When you script teaching, you have PLCs that are CYA, and then our kids become SOL. I don't teach physics for just physics. It's a way of thinking. DISD has turned it into a job that a robot could do. I was lured here by the promise of $90,000 a year salary. Only 6 teachers out of 10,000 make that. Nay, even worse, 11% of the teachers score in only the top 44% of your levels. 11% of the teachers make more than $63,000 a year. Not quite the windfall predicted, more like a portend of the calamity to follow. Get rid of TEI. As for me, I leave you with words of Douglas Adams. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Shawana Washington, followed by Hobie Huckel. Shawana Washington, followed by Hobie Huckel.
President Henry, trustees, Dr. Hannah Hosa, my name is Shawana Washington, 130 West Grove Street, Washington, Dallas, Texas, 75224. I'm a member of Alliance AFT Local 2260. I work in the district as a classified employee, and I'm here tonight to talk about TEI. I've worked in DISD for over 28 years, and I'm here to talk about TEI. I also have a daughter-in-law working as a teacher in DISD. After talking to any of them for more than a few minutes, it's clear what DISD professionals think of TEI. No matter what school they teach at, they all say one thing: TEI is hurting our kids. Let me say that again because it's so important. TEI is hurting our kids. It forces our teachers to make impossible decisions, teach to the test and get a raise, or fully educate our students in language year after year with no raise and increasing health costs. Since TEI has been enacted, we have also seen our students fall behind their peers at the national level. The nation's report card, also known as NAEP, has illustrated this again with our continued decline in scores at the national level. In fact, Dallas was one of only 3 cities in the special project which reported statistically significant declines in reading, math at the 8th grade level. For a district that prides itself on data, this is so impossible. This is impossible to ignore. It is, however, easy to explain. Quite frankly, we have amazing teachers here in Dallas. Unfortunately, right now the district is utilizing them not to educate, but to teach to the test. It's particularly the STAR test. Because we have amazing educators, we will see continued increases in our STAR scores, but NAEP scores will continue to drop. Our college readiness scores will continue to drop. Reading, writing, and critical thinking skills will remain undeveloped. But let me tell you, I'll be able to take a STAR multiple choice question better than anyone from California to New York. I urge the board to realize the damage TEI is doing to our students and the district. It is not too late to right the ship, and we're here to help you because we are on the front line. We also have ideas on how to fix it. Here are just 2. 1, remove the school STAR score from the evaluation rating. Teachers are currently punished and lose points for teaching at struggling campuses. This makes no sense because it punishes teachers to avoid teaching at most in need campuses. We should be encouraging our best teachers to go where the students most in need are. 2, remove the student survey or at least decouple it from salary. When students know that giving their educators a low survey affects their salary, it increases a poor learning environment in the classroom. Educators are hesitant to push their students because they may get a negative survey. A student should not be able to threaten their teachers with a low survey score to
Your
assign
time
homework,
has expired.
something that I hear happens all the time.
Hobie Huckel, followed by Hugh Thompson.
Good evening, Dr. Hinojosa and trustees. My name's Hobie Huckel, and I work as now the librarian at Samuel High School. Tonight, I join with my colleagues to challenge the test and punish regime of the TEI, particularly its dismal impact on our students' literacy. Of course, this is not the first time we've raised these as yet unanswered concerns. As predicted by us, the negative effects of TEI on teaching and learning are reaching absurd levels. Never mind that standardized tests have never been shown to correlate with real outcomes such as numeracy, literacy, writing, and problem solving. Never mind that 70 to 80% of the STAR reflects test-taking ability, with only perhaps 20% actually reflecting content knowledge, making it, by the way, a lousy measure of content knowledge gains. Never mind that the battery of STAR tests, common assessments, and all of the others routinely used for all sorts of high-stakes decisions have never been demonstrated to be reliable. Get that, never. And have never been shown that they actually measure what you think they measure. No validity. Teachers are hounded to focus ever more narrowly on testing skills rather than on content knowledge. One extreme example, of course, is math teachers teaching calculator skills to solve equations rather than properties of equality. When it comes to reading, extended texts have been abandoned in favor of short prompts. Even with these pressures to teach to the test, most of us attempt to impart real content knowledge and even a love of learning. But conditions make that increasingly difficult. The test outcomes and related TEI scores are meaningless. Is it any wonder that teachers and students are alienated and demoralized? The result is that I see high school students unable to read above 5th grade level. Many are so intimidated by normal books that they avoid them altogether. There have always been challenges posed by poverty, but the TEI regime compounds those problems. Teachers are micromanaged to serve its soulless program in a vain hope that they'll get lucky. But as we've seen, the only ones to get lucky are the TEI technocrats and their neoliberal patrons. Thank you.
Hugh Thompson, followed by Olympia Thomas.
Hello, my name is Hugh Thompson. I live at 2345 San Marcos Avenue in Dallas. This is only my second time ever speaking into a microphone, so I probably won't be as exciting as the last few people. But I've been a teacher in Dallas ISD for the last 3 school years. I also grew up in Dallas and attended DISD schools from kindergarten until I graduated in 2004. While teaching in Dallas ISD has been an amazing experience so far, I do have one major concern. The concern is the unpredictability inherent in the TEI compensation system. My first year in DISD was stressful. Not only did I have to acclimate to working in a new school district, but manage classrooms of 30 or more students in 7 Art 1 classes. On top of this, I had to make sure my students performed well on their ACPs because my income depended on it. I've never been known to back down from a challenge, so I worked closely with my assistant principal and visual arts team to make sure I beat the district averages on ACP scores. Through working with my colleagues and students, I was able to get the scores I needed and attain my goal of achieving a Proficient 1 status on my TEI scorecard. My second year was much better. I was familiar with the ACP content and only had to teach 2 ACP-tested sections. At the end of the year, my assistant principal told me, Hugh, you're a totally proficient teacher. I know you're only going to get better, and I think you're ready to teach the AP class. She even gave me an award for being reflective at the end of the year. After all of that, I was pretty excited to see what my TEI scorecard would look like in October. So I used the scorecard calculator that DISD provides us to calculate our scores. It looked like I would again hit the Proficient 1 mark, so I was pretty happy about getting a raise. This summer, my wife and I decided to buy a new house. Since there was no way I was not going to be a proficient teacher, I went ahead and worked the raise I was going to get into my budget. And we found a house in the budget. Figured that, you know, with my raise coming, a few $100 more a month wasn't going to kill us. I would, after all, be getting more points on my TEI scorecard. So anyway, I received my scorecard this October while in the middle of class. I opened the email immediately. Sure, I was teaching a lesson, but this is super important. First thing I saw was my score and breathed a sigh of relief. It was the same score I had calculated with the TEI calculator and was 6 points higher than my previous year's scorecard. Then I noticed instead of being Proficient 1, I'd been relegated to Progressing 2. But I had a higher score. At first I thought this was a mistake, but I quickly remembered all the cartoons from my childhood. I'd seen this trick many times before. There's that carrot right there in front of you, and then you reach for it, and it gets pulled away at the last second. I suddenly felt solidarity with all of those animators over at Hanna-Barbera Productions Incorporated. Yeah, I'm gonna run out of time. So anyways, 2 years ago, I signed up to teach all these PD sessions, joined committees, did all these things to get to the DTR status. Now I have no idea what I even need to do because there's an amorphous target, and I'm not sure how, a system designed by somebody like Chuck Jones is gonna
Thank you, Mr.
help me.
Thompson. Olympia Thomas, followed by Delna Bryan. Olympia Thomas, followed by Delna Bryan.
Good evening, Dr. Hinojosa, Board of Directors of Dallas ISD. My voice comes to you a bit differently because I am not yelling at you for anything. This evening, I am commending you. It's the first meeting since we had this natural disaster of 10 tornadoes to strike our city. 11 o'clock at night, I got a call from someone in Rockwall. She heard and recognized 3 of the tornadoes hitting her city. Another night, I got a call at 10:30 at night. This teacher was worried because, I have to do my compliance documents, and they're due, and I have my husband, and I have this. So I told her not to worry, because when I talk about we have spoken to different departments in Dallas ISD who were gracious enough to extend the period to turn in compliance documents. Every office that we spoke to in Dallas ISD stepped up to the plate with the proper demeanor and dignity, knowing that their teachers were suffering. You came through. Challenges are going to abound, and you're going to get hits from inside and outside. But I'm asking you, the day I passed Thomas Jefferson, I cried. But now my heart is smiling because I know that my district, Dallas ISD, did the right thing. I ask you all to continue to soar with wings of eagles. Walk and not faint. Don't care what attacks you get, what yelling you get from others. Remember, you are trying to do the right thing. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Selah Asha.
So that's a hard act to follow, but my name is Selah Ashai. I am a parent at Walnut Hill Elementary. I'm also the president of our PTA. I reside at 4058 South Better Drive. Part of what really motivated me to be here today is to thank you, Dr. Hinojosa, for your decisive and swift action to move our kids to another school, to keep our classes intact, to keep us with the same teachers and keep us together as a family. We were welcomed by specialists from early childhood education and the dual language program who supported our teachers. Our teachers have gone above and beyond the call of duty, and they've done it with so much love and so much grace. We are forever grateful. I'm also here to express my appreciation for the December 5th community meeting, which is scheduled to discuss long-range facilities planning. It is particularly welcome because public discussion about our school's future in the media without any of our input was demoralizing and corrosive to the morale of our community that was already devastated by the tornado. I don't speak for myself, I speak for my whole community when I say we still cry when we drive by our building. It was like losing a member of our family. As a Walnut Hill parent, we have some questions that we hope and expect to be answered at the community meeting on December 5th. One, I've heard a lot today. I've learned a lot about the district's commitment to data. So on what research are you relying to propose that a K-12 model will somehow improve our neighborhood schools? On what research are you relying when you propose that copying a private school somehow benefits our public schools, which, unlike private schools, which I went to, are the cornerstones of our democracy and designed to serve the many, not the few? Whatever the research is, when will you make it publicly available to us so we too can learn from it? When will the designs that were mocked up and provided to the press also be available for the community to review? And what is the decision-making process for the fate of Walnut Hill Elementary? Who makes those decisions at every intermediate step, and how long does that decision take? Although our school has many transfers, our neighborhood has been vocal and committed in its support of our school. And our community has spoken very clearly that we want to go back to substantially the same school that modeled excellence before the tornado hit. Our greatest enemy right now is attrition, and I can't think of anything more unfortunate than to have a high-performing blue ribbon elementary school be lost forever because we failed to listen to our community, we failed to provide what the school needed, and because we failed to act decisively on the input of the most immediate and invested stakeholders, our families, our teachers, and our community. If there is not time to address these questions at this meeting, which I think is a broad-ranging meeting, we welcome you to meet the parents of Walnut Hill Elementary in the same week so that we can continue to be in conversation. Thank you.
This concludes our speakers.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to the report section. So 4.01, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. A few items to report on. I also want to continue to thank the community. The response was overwhelming with talent, treasure, and time that our community has given us to support the rebuild of our schools after, and to support the rebuild of those families after the tornadoes. Second item, I also want to thank our Office of Racial Equity and our other leaders who helped the board put together the African American Studies course that was presented to the State Board of Education, and they received, our educators received a tremendous response for their efforts and their presentation to the State Board of Education. And on a sad note, I want to personally announce the regret of the passing of a superintendent of the Dallas Independent School District, Dr. James Huey. I didn't know Dr. Huey as a teacher, but I did know him afterwards, and he did a great job during a tumultuous time in Dallas. He was brought in as a former principal, a very respected principal, to serve as superintendent when we had 2 superintendents in 2 years, that he was able to bring a lot of calm to this district. He passed recently. There is going to be a funeral on Saturday in McKinney, and I plan to represent the school district at Dr. Huey's celebration of life. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board of Trustees, are there any committee reports?
Yes.
Trustee Flores.
So we have an audit committee report. The audit committee met on November 15th, and we discussed and got a report from our external auditors. We were in Tidwell regarding the 2018-19 audit. Jerry Gaither, Partner Assurance Services, and Claire Wooten, Manager Assurance and Services from that firm, presented the external audit, and we also considered and approved sending to the full Board of Trustees for approval the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019. And we reviewed several items and took action on several and final internal audit reports. That's the report from the audit committee, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Flores. Any other committee reports? Trustee Milken.
Mr. President, just a brief update on the Superintendent's Evaluation Committee. We will have a full report at the called board meeting that will be scheduled before the board briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Milken. Moving on to 4.03, trustee reports for all of our districts. Trustee Foreman, will you do the honors to start? You want to wait?
Thank you, Trustee Henry. I want to congratulate the Atwell Archers, who were District 1 champions in the Dallas ISD middle school football matchups, and that's the way to go, Atwell Archers. And a big thanks to Kathleen Joy Gillum Collegiate Academy teachers and staff for hosting several open house events throughout November, with 2 more coming up in December 3rd and December 4th. These events provide prospective students and their families information about the school's unique program, which blends high school and college coursework for a head start on higher education. And I want to leave with the fact that I understand that there was some conversation about the public safety initiative in our collegiate academy at Carter High School. We're really excited about that. And if you know anybody that's interested in it, I'm sure the principal will be glad to speak with you about that. It's a 3-year effort, and I want to make sure that it's at Carter High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman. Trustee Mackey.
All right, for District 7, I want to shout out Felix G. Boteo Elementary School for recently hosting educators across the nation to learn from the top practices from their student-centered curriculum and culture as a national leading AVID campus. Also, congratulations to Jose Alcacio, Martin Colmenero, Natalia Alvarado, and Vanessa Martinez for representing Adamson High School at the IBM EdTech Cities Challenge and winning $250,000 to bring their innovative ideas to life. Kudos to Winnetka Elementary for celebrating the building's 80th year anniversary and providing 106 years of exemplary education in Oak Cliff. I got the chance to go out there, and it was packed and such a fun and warm time. And I also want to congratulate the Sunset High School Band and JROTC for placing 2nd and 3rd, respectively, in the Veterans Day Parade, despite inclement weather.
Thank you, Trustee Mackey. Trustee Flores.
Thank you, President Henry. So first off, the Thomas C. Marsh Preparatory Academy is proud to be one of the schools across the district selected to offer free meals during the Thanksgiving break. To provide Dallas ISD students continuous access to nutritious meals during the break, the district's Food and Nutrition Services Department will offer a morning snack and lunch to all children and youth through age 18, November 25th through 27th. To see the complete list of locations and times, visit the Dallas ISD website. Also, congrats to the Anne Frank Elementary's remarkable chess team for bringing 2 first-place trophies at the district-wide chess tournament, which was held at Hexter Elementary. Thanks to all our incredible sponsors who take the time to help students learn valuable skills that will benefit them for a lifetime. I also want to join the superintendent in remembering Dr. Jimmy Huey, who was our superintendent from 1997 to 1999, and I also will be at the event on Saturday. And finally, District 1 will be hosting, I'll be hosting a District 1 community meeting on December 5th at 6 o'clock in the W.T. White Library. I hope everybody can join us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Flores. Trustee Mitchko.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to congratulate the Bryan Adams Academic Decathlon team, which won the district competition for the 3rd consecutive year. The team, under the leadership of AP World History teacher Diane Birdwell, won 7 of 15 gold medals. Junior Jacob Mendoza also had the top divisional and overall score. Bryan Adams will compete in the regional competition this February. Also, congratulations to Jackalow Senior Elementary School Principal Sandra Barrios for receiving the Terrell H. Bell Award for Outstanding Leadership from the U.S. Department of Education. Ms. Barrios was among 10 principals to be recognized from across the country a few weeks ago as among the nation's best school leaders. The award is well-deserved recognition of the work she and her campus did to turn around Jackalow Senior Elementary School, which earlier this year was recognized for its success with the National Blue Ribbon Award. And congratulations to Emmett J. Conrad High School industry partner Taylor Sheed of Stemuli, who recently won the Martha Stowe Leadership and Service Award. Thank you for supporting and mentoring so many of our students in District 3. I'd also like to thank the superintendent and Mayor Johnson for working together to establish a criminal justice pathway at Bryan Adams High School, as well as the leadership team under Brian Lusk, and of course everyone over at Bryan Adams High School. This is a great opportunity for kids to serve the community they grew up in as law enforcement officers, police officers, and this goes along with the path that already is there, which is developing teachers for early childhood education. I will say that I was very impressed with the way that the mayor and the superintendent went about this. Over the summer, Mayor Johnson spoke with the superintendent, spoke with me, and asked if we could get one of these, another pipeline going at another school in the northern part of Dallas. And it's amazing how quickly and how effectively our district has been able to move to make these things a reality. Mayor Johnson was really impressed and appreciative. This was one of the first things that he wanted to do when he was elected, and I appreciate the way that it was his intent to go and encourage students to become public servants, as opposed to calling a press conference and grandstanding or anything like this. I think it bodes well for the future working relationship between the district and the mayor's office, and he's also indicated that he is willing to help recruit industry partners, help raise funds for the Dallas Education Foundation, and help create other community partnerships. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Mitchke. Trustee Garcia.
All right, for District 4, over 100 parents and students attended the Dia de los Muertos Festival at Annie Webb Elementary on November the 7th. It was part of the school's cultural nights as an effort to promote diversity and unity among the community and celebrate different cultural traditions, including my own. On November 13th, Samuel High School students signed a letter of intent pledging to return to Dallas ISD to teach after earning an education degree. Those students are freshmen and sophomores in the early college high school program, where they can earn up to 60 college credits and associate's degree, essentially tuition-free while they are still in high school. Tomorrow, at the School of Talented and Gifted in Pleasant Grove, PGA of America pro golfer Tony Martinez will be speaking to our students. He serves at the PGA Board of Directors representing District 12, which includes all of Texas and New Mexico. He is the second guest in the School Depth and Complexity Symposium, which is part of the School Speaker Series, and also had the personal pleasure yesterday of attending the John Quincy Adams Student Council induction ceremony, which I am super proud to tell you that there are future trustees coming up in line from John Quincy Adams Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Garcia. Trustee Solis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Kudos to recent IDEA grad Jasmine Benton for winning the 2019 Business Venture of the Year at the National Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge, earning her $7,500 and an investor to help grow her business, Precious Designs. I want to publicly congratulate Eric Hale, who is a teacher at Burnett Elementary School, for receiving the 2019 Annual Queen Smith Award, which recognizes the top educator in the country working in an urban school district. This award came from the Council of the Great City Schools and McGraw-Hill Education to honor his significant contributions to urban education and the children he serves. I also want to say thank you to someone who's in the crowd right now for his continued leadership, but specifically his leadership in my absence while I was overseas during the recent tornado and recovery. So Joe Carrion, who has been a very good friend for many years, stepped up for me because I couldn't be here as things were happening, and the neighborhood was extremely appreciative, specifically the areas around Burnett and the area that you live in the Bachman Lake area. So thank you, Joe. And lastly, I want to say a huge congratulations to someone who absolutely deserves this award and has done a phenomenal job over the many, many years that he has served as a Dallas ISD trustee. He's taught me quite a bit. He deserves this, and he's going to do a phenomenal job. And that is Trustee Edwin Flores, who has been named to the Texas School Safety Center Board by Governor Abbott. Edwin, you're going to do a phenomenal job. We thank you for what you do, and you set the standard for what it means to be a great trustee. So thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Trustee Solis. Trustee Johnson.
Thank you, President. Kudos to the 4 Townview students who were named finalists in a mystery writing competition at BoosterCon, World Mystery Convention. These students will see their work published in the company's teen anthology. I want to give a shout out to our District 5 championship team, Coach Jones, and the O.W. Holmes Humanity Communication Academy Tigers football team had an outstanding season, finishing as District 4 and by-district champions. Also, congratulations to the South Oak Cliff Golden Bears football team for advancing to the UIL area playoffs. They'll be facing Frisco this Friday at the Star. Also, kudos to Trustee Henry, who is also wearing a sock jersey because South Oak Cliff beat them at the Skyline. He would like to show that off tonight. You want to show that off tonight? Also, finally, special thanks to Ford Motor Company and Jack Bazin for sponsoring a field trip for students from Roosevelt and Pinkston High School to see the movie Harriet. Also, I would like to invite everyone out to Ellis Davis this Saturday at 11 a.m. I wanted to do something special for kids in low-income area as well as the parents and students that was affected by the tornado. We will be giving a Thanksgiving meal to our families and as well as sending them with Thanksgiving meal turkeys after they eat. So if you're not doing anything, please come out and support our community this Saturday at 11 a.m. at Ellis Davis Fieldhouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Trustee Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I look forward to seeing how you're going to get back at Trustee Johnson for that jersey. Lots going on in District 2. Congrats first to the JL Long girls and boys cross-country teams that wrapped up their seasons with city championships, and also to the JL Long Lady Bucks that became the 2019 Dallas Volleyball City champions as well, and had an undefeated season. So congrats, ladies. On October 26th, the Woodrow Wilson celebrated its 90-year anniversary, also inducted new members into the Woodrow Hall of Fame, and celebrated the ribbon-cutting ceremony for their new gym. So I want to thank Scott Lane for joining me at the ribbon-cutting and for the operations team on putting together the new gym. It's truly awesome. On October 30th, 2 District 2 teachers were awarded Teacher of the Year. Ben Milam's very own Amanda Huffman and Michael Jones from JL Long Middle School were both awarded. Incidentally, Michael Jones also received the Teacher of the Year award from the Greater East Dallas Chamber of Commerce. So I'm grateful for them for hosting those awards, and congrats to Michael for being recognized twice. On October 31st, 14 Dallas ISD authors attended a luncheon at the BoosterCon World Mystery Convention. They were named finalists by the Reading Language Arts Department in a mystery writing competition. Amelia Nickel and Onier Lucero of Hillcrest High School and Patricia McDonald and Ellie Laird of Woodrow Wilson were among those 14. They will see their work published in a teen anthology, so great job. I want to thank the Dallas Stars hockey players that came to Ben Franklin Middle School to help teachers and staff fill bags of school supplies for the Cary Middle School students that were relocated due to the tornado. We appreciate your generosity. On November 6th, the Woodrow Wilson band director, Chris Evitz, was surprised in class by being presented with an Excellent Educator Award from SMU. The student body president at SMU presented him with a $1,000 check, and NBC came out to interview him. This is the latest in a long string of honors for Woodrow's band director, and lots of media coverage. He's really done a great job with the program. Also on November 12th, the JL Long football team became the 2019 Dallas Middle School City Champions, so congrats to the players and coaches on their win. Also want to congratulate North Dallas seniors who won the Heisman High School Scholarship and are now in the running for the state competition. So congrats to Sergio Cibrian and Tina Nguyen. Also, on November 7th, the Jingzhou International Forum for School Principals, which is comprised of about 30 principals from across China, visited Hillcrest High School's E-Tech to learn how the district has scaled that program. Region 10 hosted that delegation. Also want to give a shout out to Lipscomb Elementary, which is celebrating its 100-year anniversary this year. They kicked off that celebration with an event last Friday. I was glad to attend, and I appreciate City Council Rep David Blewett as well as State Rep Morgan Meyer for attending, and also thank Morgan Meyer in particular for bringing a flag that had flown over the state capitol that day to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of Lipscomb. Also, shout out to the JROTC students from Woodrow that helped kick off this month's Greater Dallas Veterans Day Parade by presenting the colors. And lastly, but certainly not least, probably most impressively, I want to congratulate J.L. Long Middle School teacher Susan Moreno, who received the Milken Educator Award, which is known as the Oscars of Teaching. The award recognizes educators who are in their early to mid-career for what they have achieved and for the promise of what they will accomplish. I want to thank the superintendent as well as many staff members for attending. Also, trustees Miguel Solis and Dan Mitchke were there with me to help honor Ms. Moreno. And I want to thank TEA Commissioner Mike Morath for attending the surprise event to personally congratulate Ms. Moreno. There was tons of news coverage, and the honor comes with a $25,000 award for her as an individual. She's recognized as one of the best teachers in the country, and there was only one teacher in the entire state of Texas to win this award. So big, big deal for Ms. Moreno, and we're very lucky to have her at Long. That concludes the District 2 report.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall. I want to say congratulations to the City Lab High School students who recently won the State Chapter Award from the American Planning Association in recognition of their work designing projects to improve life in their communities. I also want to say congratulations to the Great James Madison Trojans, winners of their bi-district football championship. The team is advancing to the UIL area playoffs this Friday, taking on Winsboro at 7:30 p.m. at Greensville's Ford Stadium. I want to acknowledge 2 District 9 schools who received generous corporate donations this month. The Hyatt Regency, who's been a huge sponsor of Lincoln Humanities and Communications High School, made a $15,000 donation. And the Lincoln to the Lincoln Collegiate Academy to fund supplies and training opportunities for students. Students at Roman Hill Young Women's Leadership School were treated to an evening of inspiring concert performances by the women of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. The concert was part of the DSO's Full Steam Ahead residency designed to engage students in activities that connect music and science. Again, I know people talked about a lot of educators. I want to acknowledge just 2, Mr. Eric Hill and Ms. Susan Moreno, who both won national recognized awards for their excellence in teaching, not just for the education they deliver, but their commitment to their students. I want to take a pause to recognize one of our own, Dr. Stephanie Elizalde, who recently defended her dissertation and earned her doctorate, well-deserved and well-earned. And she did all this in the midst of dealing with a crisis in our community. So just want to acknowledge you at the night meeting. And the last piece, I have this jersey on. Trustee Johnson's very confident right now at halftime he wouldn't talk to anybody. So Sock pulled it out at the end, beat Skyline. I'm a man of my word, so I'm wearing this jersey tonight. That concludes the District 9 report. We're going to move to section.
Point of order, Mr. President. We can't see the jersey.
Thank you, Trustee Mishke. He has to take his coat off.
He removes his coat.
I give a second.
Point of information, what does this said jersey look like? I think the best evidence is to actually see it.
Trustee Henry, can you sport the gold and white, please, sir? Trustee Henry.
Gonna remember that. Section 5, consider and take possible action to approve the minutes submitted for approval. Trustees, the following minutes have been submitted for approval. Board of Trustees and Superintendent's Governance Training Workshop, October 10, 2019. Board of Trustees and Superintendent's Governance Training Workshop, October 14, 2019. Superintendent's Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee Meeting, October 14, 2019. Board of Trustees and Superintendent Workshop, October 17, 2019. Board meeting, October 17, 2019. Call board meeting, October 29th, 2019. Board of Trustees and Superintendent's Governance Training Workshop, October 29, 2019. And the Superintendent's Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee Meeting, November 5th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the minutes submitted for approval. Trustees, are there any corrections? There's no corrections. Trustees, will you please cast your votes?
Trustee Mitchell?
I vote yes.
I need to use the little mouse.
The motion passes 9-0.
Okay. Before we move on to the considered agenda items, I want to recognize Superintendent Hinojosa.
Thank you, President Henry. The administration desires to pull from the agenda item 6.46, consider and take possible action to award and enter a contract with Big Sky and TNJJV to renovate Chapel Hill Preparatory. So at this time, the administration requests this be pulled completely from the agenda.
Thank you, Superintendent Hinojosa. Now we're going to move on to consent agenda items. Consider and take possible action to approve consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.55 as amended, acknowledging that 6.46 was pulled by the administration. We have consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.55 as amended. The following items have been pulled for a separate vote: 6.11, 6.13, 6.16, 6.22, 6.23, 6.49, 6.54, and 6.55. Before we continue, do you want to put these back on the consent agenda item? Any of these pulled items? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.55 as amended. There is no debate on consent agenda items. Trustees, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 8 voting, 1 and Dustin Marsh, you abstained? Okay. 8 voting yes, and 1 abstaining.
Now moving on to section 7.01, consider and take possible action to approve amendment to board policy E. These are items pulled for a separate vote. Amendment to board policy EHBAF, local special education video audio monitoring. Second read sponsored by Chief Durant. Consent item 6.11 pulled by Trustee Joyce Foreman and Justin Hinton and myself. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion?
Yes. I do.
Trustee Marshall?
So I will be supporting this item as outlined by the administration. But as I mentioned to my colleagues at the board briefing, I feel strongly that the board needs to act to put a camera in every special ed contained classroom, both current classrooms as well as future classrooms. But I have been advised by a district attorney that since this item pertains to the process by which cameras are requested rather than whether or not there are cameras in the classrooms, that it wouldn't be appropriate to insert my amendment into this particular policy. So rather than propose an amendment, as I discussed at the board briefing, I've been advised by our attorneys that a proper procedure to effectuate the same change that I proposed at the briefing is rather to pursue an administrative action. So I earlier today sent an email to the superintendent that I'm just going to read and then hand out an attachment to my fellow colleagues. It says, "I'd like to formally request the administration bring forward an administrative action to a future board meeting regarding the installation of video equipment in all existing self-contained classrooms or settings and all future self-contained classrooms and settings in accordance with the provisions of Texas Education Code Section 29.022. I further ask that the administration process the board document through the proper administrative workflows and provide the appropriate funding source and relative information associated with the installation and maintenance of the equipment. I'd also suggest that the district consider a new RFP with new pricing for cameras across the district so that the per unit cost per camera is lower, given that it will be at scale for 480 approximate classrooms. Please feel free to modify the proposed board document to include the addition of funding information and, if necessary, any other supporting documents, including but not limited to a detailed information sheet." So again, this will not be voted on as an amendment to this item, but rather in a future board meeting. I leave it to the superintendent to put that on a future agenda, but I'm prepared to ask the board president and/or 3 colleagues to get it on the agenda if that's necessary. So with that, I'll be supporting this item. I hope my colleagues will join me in getting cameras in all of our SPED classrooms, as we've had several speakers speak about, and as I talked about at length at the board briefing, these are our most vulnerable children, and we need to hold every adult that comes in contact with them accountable for acting in their best interest. And further, we need to provide our teachers with a defense against wrongful accusation by being able to produce the video that happened in that classroom. So I hope my colleagues will support this administrative action when it comes back before the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, trustees, will you please cast your votes?
Trustee Foreman and Trustee Solis. I got it. Okay. The motion passes 9-0.
On to agenda item 7.02, consider and take possible action to approve the annual targets for student outcome goals and goal progress measures. Consider item 6.13 pulled by the administration. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion?
Chief Elizalde, anything to clarify? I think we did make some modifications. Since there were changes from the briefing to the night meeting, there was a lot of consensus that we gleaned at the presentation. So now I would like to have the team give a couple of highlights and then for the board's consideration.
We did want to, good evening, trustees. We did want to just call out that we did take the feedback that you all provided and incorporated it into the document as was discussed. Specifically, Goal 5 is a focus on middle grades, and it includes 6, 7, and 8, not just 7 and 8. We also added the MAP component so that there's another nationally normed assessment that will replace something that's currently in existence, won't be in addition to, and still kept also the focus on our African American student performance so that we can also report that out specifically. And just to reiterate, this was already currently discussed at a previous meeting, but to highlight that we will be moving from one particular evaluation under Goal 2. We'll phase 1 out with regard to the reading assessment that's currently being used, ISIP, as we move to using MAPS. So you'll see an overlap. So one will eventually be removed under the goal progress measure as we replace it, but it'll take us a year to do that. We really wanted on the record that we responded to the feedback and of course, if you have any questions, but we felt we had heard the consensus of the group.
Thank you, Dr. Elizalde. Trustee Mitchkay, followed by Trustee Garcia and Trustee Flores.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight the fact that this draft removes as a formal goal the extracurricular activities goal. And when we put that goal in place, we were really trying to encourage kids to get more involved in school through extracurricular and co-curricular activities to help them grow socially and emotionally. And our teachers and principals and staff really stepped up, and we achieved that goal about 3 years earlier than we thought we would achieve it. Now, some of us have had reservations about removing it as a formal goal because we don't want to take our foot off the pedal. We still want to make sure that we are doing everything possible to keep kids engaged in school through participation in extracurricular activities. So what can you tell us about how the administration plans to do that, to have safeguards in place that to ensure that we don't fall back to a situation where we have way too many kids not participating?
When the board adopted this goal, the original Goal 5, principals were not being held specifically accountable in their evaluation instrument for this particular measurement. So 2 things that have happened since then. It is now incorporated into the principal's evaluation, and I would say even more importantly, it's also a part of our state local accountability system that the state of Texas approved for Dallas Independent School District. So as you all recall, the board was very confident that you wanted an entire, the whole child as part of our state accountability. And we were one of just a handful of districts that even applied for a local accountability system, which still relies a significant portion on STAR results. However, there are other metrics that are utilized. That metric includes extracurricular activities. Furthermore, we've made adjustments to that measurement because previously all we had been measuring was how many students were actually participating. We're now defining and redefining exactly how many students are participating in and what that participation really is reflected of, not just I showed up to one chess match, so okay, I'm in the chess club, but rather that there has to be continual documented involvement with a sponsor, and we have a group in our office, Charla Hudspeth's group, that will continue to monitor the documentation so that we are staying true to the fact that more students and more teachers are continuing to support extracurricular activities.
Okay, so that was one of my reservations about the way the goal was stated when the extracurricular activity goal was goal number 5. The reservation being that it didn't measure intensity, didn't measure whether there was really substantive participation. And so can you give me an example of how you're going to measure intensity or substantive participation?
One of the areas is that it has to be composed of a multiple different types of participation. So to give an example, if we have a high participation in band at a high school, but that's all, we don't have any athletics, we don't have fine arts, we don't have additional types of, and Bryan may be able to help me more specifically with those areas. So you have to have a certain number of categories that are actually being afforded. The goal there, of course, is the more choices we offer students to participate, the greater chance we have of them participating, not just offering them, everybody's got to participate, but you have to participate in this. So I believe that's one area in particular. Bryan?
Just to build on to what you just said, so it's established so that 4 out of 5 areas, so Stephanie talked about the areas that that we want our students to engage with, be academics, athletics, the extracurricular hobbies as well, I should say. So there are schools, if they achieve 4 out of 5 of those areas where students are engaging, then that's part of the target. The other part of the target is to have at least 25% of teachers to serve in the extracurricular activities, so that excuse me, beyond the experiences students have, they're also building relationships with the students.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do, I'm supportive of this change, although somewhat reluctant about it. But what I'd like to request is that the administration continue to provide reports on how we're doing with extracurricular activities, and to do them on a basis that is as regular as we've had those reports over the past 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mitch K. Trustee Solis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to the administration for quickly turning around this product. And thank you specifically for both the attention to the middle grades. As Dr. Hinojosa has said many times, this is the last frontier. And I think this is going to give us great direction. Additionally, you all took the time to try to build a map GPM, and that's great. It really is, because I think as we continue to have the conversation about the national standards and figuring out how we're doing in comparison to other states, map data are going to be critical. So the more we can focus on those type of data, I think the better as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Marshall. Trustee Flores?
Thank you, President Henry. So I want to echo pretty much Dan stole like everything that I was going to say, practically. I mean, I have, strong reservations about, losing what used to be goal number 6, by the way. I still have my, make goal number 6 happen at your school T-shirt. Then it became goal number 5 because we can only have 5. But, I echo the sentiment that we need to, keep the pedal to the metal on this issue and making sure extracurriculars, co- and extracurricular activities, sports, athletics, all these things, hobbies, clubs, happen in our schools, that we have the opportunity, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, stuff like that. I mean, getting students engaged and involved is such an important part of growing up, and educating the whole child, having reports, with whatever frequency makes sense, I think will be very important, because I think the board, really wrestled if we were only gonna have 5, was it something important enough to, lose our goal number 5 of extracurriculars. I think that the middle school goal is very, very important as well. But thank you, Stephanie, for, making sure that this is part of the principal evaluation, that it's part of our, school performance framework. And I think that it really is essential. I mean, just the example of, the gaming, and how you guys jumped on that and made that happen. And I think that in part was because it was such a visible goal, and we were so incredibly successful with that goal at growing it, looking at, intensity is one way of describing penetrance is another. How deep is it really in our schools? And so hopefully we will continue to grow in that area. And of course, in terms of funding and things like that, I mean, I'm very supportive of expanding those opportunities for, students that otherwise wouldn't have those opportunities. It's not the suburbs. It's not like gaming is everywhere. I mean, making those robotics, things like that are so important to our kids. So I do hope that you will keep a very close eye on it. I know, Stephanie, you will, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Flores. Trustee Mackey, and then Trustee Foreman, and then Trustee Marshall.
I, like Trustee Solis, want to thank you all for taking all of the comments, folding it back in, went through numerous iterations of this. I think y'all did a phenomenal job capturing the discussion. I know this is a hard thing to do, to take all of those into metrics to look at. And I really appreciate the inclusion of MAP. I know we've talked a lot about MAP, and the presentation at the last workshop was really powerful, and I think it can do a lot for our district and for us thinking about education as we go forward. I just have one clarifying question on the MAP, the baseline score. Can you remind me, is that a baseline score that we currently have, or is that what we're going to be getting before we move forward?
We are kind of guessing,
Okay.
because we did map at the beginning of the year, and you'll note that the baseline actually is an end of year that we'll be comparing, that we start with.
Gotcha.
And so it's the first time we've actually used it across the board, right? So we're still kind of, I mean, we've taken it from the assessments we've been given, that we gave already, but we may need to come back to you with some adjustments. That's why it has that little asterisk.
That makes sense.
Thank you for asking.
For the GPM 5.3 is what I'm looking at. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the beginning of the year readiness was? What we started with? I know it's not a directly comparable measure.
I don't recall. I just know Cecilia used that data to create that.
Okay.
But we can certainly, I'll get with Cecilia.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for doing this. I think this captures a lot. I'm excited for it.
Trustee Foreman.
Stephanie?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for listening, particularly on the middle school initiative. That's something I've been pushing and will continue to push, because we have a lot of issues with our children in middle school, as you know. And I was looking at some data, and I shared this with the superintendent, just on the retesters. The 9th and 10th grade retesters, we had 5,397. And 1,150 of those students went through the grade placement committee and were promoted. And there are some issues there, I think, that we have to really take a deeper look at, and I think Ames in the middle is a good step in the right direction, but I think more focus has to go on what's happening in middle school. A tough time anyway for young people, but particularly from the educational standpoint, so I'm extremely excited about that. I don't think at any time my conversation was to diminish what we do with extracurricular activities, because I definitely believe in the whole child and making sure that we push kids into becoming productive citizens when they leave the district. But we've got to get a handle on what's going on in our middle schools, and so I think this is a great opportunity, and what you measure is what you're gonna work on the most, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman. Trustee Marshall.
So I too just want to add my voice to the chorus of thank yous. I do share some of the concerns that Trustee Flores and Trustee Mitchke talked about, and that's why I had originally asked for the extracurricular goal to remain when you polled us at the last meeting. But as long as we're receiving ongoing updates about that and it's incorporated into other measurement systems, I'm comfortable voting to support this. And I do just want to reflect for a moment that we've come a long way as a district over the last couple years. The level of thought and rigor that's gone into this goal-setting exercise dwarfs anything that previous boards have done. We've got 5 goals that I think we're all about to agree on, perhaps even unanimously, which we all know happens rarely around here. But we also have goal progress measures that each have targets for the next 5 years. It's a very thoughtful and strategic and organized way of laying out what we're hoping to accomplish for our children. And I just want to commend the administration for leading that effort, for doing all the work that it took to get to this point, and to corralling 9 folks that often don't agree. I think once we have these goals and we're talking about data and we're spending more time around this horseshoe talking about students and student outcomes and what we need to track in order to drive results forward for kids, I think we're all doing a better job of our respective roles in helping children. And so I'm just thrilled that we've made this progress over the last 3 or 4 years, and I just want to push us to continue along this path. And I think one way that we'll continue along this path that we should come back and talk about at the next board meeting is ensuring that goals are aligned throughout the district, not just around this board table, but also when it comes to things like compensating the superintendent, that we're aligning the goals that the superintendent has in his new contract to these board goals that we're about to pass. So thanks for all your work on this, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Trustee, I again want to echo my colleagues' sentiments, and I just want to thank also the colleagues on the board for coming together and working diligently, including special workshops to try to reach these goals. And I appreciate the administration listening and incorporating this, just being so detailed and thoughtful. I'm very excited about what we have in front of us now. It sets us on the correct path in this district, or continues on the correct path in this district. So if there are any more comments, trustees, could you please cast your votes?
The motion passes 9-0.
Moving on to agenda item 7.03, consider and take possible action to approve the amendment to the previously approved contract with Head Start of Greater Dallas to provide pre-kindergarten collaborative services for 2019-2020, not to exceed $300,000 special revenue funding sources. Consent item 6.16, pulled by Trustee Joyce Foreman and Justin Henry. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
It is moved and seconded. Trustee, is there discussion? Trustees, is there discussion? Trustee Foreman?
Yeah, quick discussion. Okay, Derek, thank you for answering my questions, but I just have one question. The number of the students that we lost in this pre-K program, it wasn't on here. What was the number of students that we lost?
Good evening, Trustee Foreman.
Good evening.
For this partnership, all of these students are located in our campuses.
Oh, okay.
So we actually didn't lose any of them.
Okay.
They're just not all in the partnership anymore.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Moving on to item 7.04, consider and take possible action.
You need to take
Oh,
a
I'm
vote.
sorry. Thank y'all. I see where my mind's at. Trustees, please cast your vote. I'm trying to get out of this sock jersey. That's the thing.
Take your time.
Trustee Foreman and, okay. Motion passes 9-0.
All right, try this again. 7.04, consider and take possible action to approve the budget amendments for November 30th, 2019. Consent item 6.22, pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman and Maxie Johnson. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion? I have trustee Foreman.
Yes. So just a couple of questions of clarification that I don't quite understand. On item number 4, we said cost to implement esports equipment costs comes from bond funds.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
In the original proposal for esports, there were registration and things like that that are included in here, and there were also the equipment. And so what we have decided to do is use some of the interest earnings out of the bond fund to fund that equipment.
I'm just confused about bond funds for equipment. I just haven't seen that before.
Well, I mean, it is a allowable expense due to the life of the equipment. And so we've had a discussion about designating interest to go to that equipment, much like we spend money on technology type equipment. So it's in that same category.
We need to have a discussion about that. I'm just not clear
Absolutely.
on that particular one, not for bond funds. Then item number 5, budgeted expense, the final payment on computer leases.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we have a new contract or a new lease for computers?
No, ma'am.
How do we do this?
No, ma'am, that was a lease that was approved 5 years ago, and this was the final payment. And at the time we made the payment, generally it's expensed, but it actually went over fiscal years. So in further review, we moved that to prepaid expense at the end of June 30th, which is reflected in the CAFR. And this year we will be actually expensing that. We didn't have a budget line item for that, so this is why this was added on there to add that in.
So did we expense it last year or?
No, ma'am, we typically, if the payment made it over a fiscal year, we had expensed it in the year that
That
yeah,
happened.
actually, right, but because it was the end of the lease, in review of that end of the lease finalization, we realized there were actual payments, or actually months of the lease into the new fiscal year. So all those months that totaled this dollar amount was moved to prepaid because we had paid for those, and now we're going to expense them in this fiscal year, which is the correct year. But we needed a budget line item to do that.
So on item number 7, so is this something that is mandatory from House Bill 3?
These actual kits are not necessarily mandatory. There are expenditures related to these security measures that we need to do, including some training, but the actual kits themselves are not required. They're one of the suggestions that you can utilize, and we have already done some training with those items, and this is to further that with additional kits across the district.
And what's the total amount of the kits?
I have to get the exact amount. I was thinking it was, I thought we were going to get 2,000 kits for this dollar amount. I'll have to check the exact amount. I don't know it off the top of my head.
So could you please
Yes, absolutely.
get that for me? And have we used these kits before, or who made the decision on purchasing these kits?
As far as purchasing the kits, that would come from the security group that would be looking at and doing training for, and we've already done some training for the teaching staff and over the summer, and this is to extend that as well.
Security, like the police security?
I believe it came from Sherry West Group, if I'm not mistaken.
I see you coming, Stephanie.
It started with Sherry's office. It's a joint with our police as well as our campus of, staff, because this is the latest in the research that shows so many injuries should something catastrophic happen. Many of the injuries, a lot of lives could have been saved if these had been utilized. So it's now best in class. It's a best practice to have all staff members at campuses trained how to use it and how to respond in such an emergency. So Sherry already had a group that we had started the training with last year or during the summer, and we are wanting to make sure that I have them at every single school from an equity perspective.
Yeah, and I get that, but we got 227 schools and we're buying 2,000 kits.
Well, I think this is about how many different locations that you have these within a building. It's not one per building per se, but we'll certainly, to answer the question directly, get the exact, how did we go about identifying that number?
Determination. Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay, and the total cost?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. And then, so the JROTC.
Yes, ma'am.
We missed a rollover.
Right, if you recall, in the early part of the year, we do a PO rollover. At that time, this purchase order was not caught in that process, but the order is still out there and needs to be accounted for, and so we're including it here as we would with the normal PO rollover.
So what was the dollar amount on that rollover?
I'm sorry?
What was the dollar amount on that rollover?
I would have to get exact amount, but it was probably $8 point something million. I don't have the exact amount.
Is there any way you can get it before I vote on it?
I don't have that data with me.
Thank you. I'll be voting no.
Trustees, will you please cast your votes?
The motion passes 7 voting yes and 2 voting no.
Seven 7.05, consider and take possible action to approve the proposed 2020-2021 campus staffing formula as consent item 26.23, pulled by trustees Joyce Foreman, Maxie Johnson, and Ben Mackey. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Foreman?
Okay, Stephanie, I've been looking at some data, and I still need to get more information, but I'm concerned, and I've also shared this with the superintendent, is that we have a large number of blended classes, meaning that we have 2 grade levels in a class, and we also have a large number of class size waivers. So to me, it appears that we are starving our campuses by using some of this methodology that is available to us. I don't have the exact number of the blended classes.
I have that one that we sent you in the tracker.
Yeah,
I have
you
it
sent
in
me
front of
in
me.
the tracker.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, do you have the number of students that are in those blended classes?
Yes, ma'am. And of course, they range, but
Yes.
there was, if I may, to some extent, respond to some of the parts of the questions you're asking. So there are 100, and this was when I pulled the data of the 136 blended classrooms that we have. Now, today, there are not 136, it's less, but I can't tell you exactly how many because I didn't pull it today. But when I was looking at it, we already had less than 10, I had less than 136 because students have already started to move in and out of our district. And so the number of students that are now in that, the number of students required causing to blend some classrooms is reduced. But even if I stayed with the 136, which is the number that I submitted in the tracker, that represents 4% of all K-4 classrooms of 3,156. So 96% of our classrooms are still one grade level, pure. In addition to that, just as a reminder, some of them are due to the variety of programming. I believe there was one particular school that has, when I turned in the tracker report, that even stood out to me, and that was KB Polk. Today, they do not have 16 split classes, which is what I think was reported originally.
Yes.
We now have only 8. But those 8 represent the fact that some of them are the GT Vanguard, 3rd grade with 4th grade, 4th grade with 5th grade, and actually now at 4th and 5th, the only split class there or blended class is the Deaf Ed program. Those class sizes I can give you with them being blended, 17, 18, 16, 16, 12, 7. So if I divided those and had them be single classes, I'd have classes of 7, 8, 6, 7, and 2.
So when they're blended in that manner, say for instance it's 4th and 5th grade, are they teaching the 4th grade TEKS or the 5th grade TEKS?
They teach both. We utilize centers within classrooms, so the teacher will have activities that are, for instance, with 5th grade level standards for 5th graders, doing some direct teach with 4th grade students. However, in some instances, we have 4th grade students, and KB Polk is actually an example, 4th grade students that are GT with 5th grade students are in fact studying 5th grade standards, and many of the parents are very, very satisfied. I haven't had any complaints at all at KB Polk because part of this was the design. This particular leader is very well versed in including teachers and parents in the process, so even deciding where they were going to do that. Some of these didn't require blending. They have enough teachers, but because of where the student performance was, they wanted to have some of these students, similar to what happens in some Montessori classrooms. So the response to the tracker, the question that you asked, did generate for me that we want to do a review of how everyone, when they are doing blended classrooms, how are they doing that? What kind of involvement do we do with our staff and our communities to ensure we're communicating and making the best use of the staff that we provide?
Well, when I looked at it, even Mark Twain, that just recently became talented and gifted, we have blended classes
Now,
there.
that one is because, as you recall, we grandfathered students in. And so when there were only 6 students were left in a 3rd grade class and that were there from 2nd grade, again, the numbers would require very few students, less than 10, to a teacher.
Okay, so you are going to take a relook at
We're going to
these
continue, yes, ma'am.
blended, I didn't know we had blended classes.
Yes, ma'am. In some instances, it's the only way to ensure that we don't have less than 5 students in a classroom, because as I described last time with class size waivers, you have 3rd grade gen ed, 3rd grade bilingual, 3rd grade ESL, 3rd grade GT, 3rd grade fine arts vanguard, 4th grade fine arts vanguard, for instance, at a Lanier school. So when you have very specialized programs, which we want to offer, but we also have to ensure that there is some consistency with the numbers that we utilize. So, but we are going to continue to look at ways in which we can see how can we mitigate some of this so that we can reduce these, both reducing the numbers of class size waivers and reducing the numbers of blended classes.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Marshall.
Yeah, I just have a question, Stephanie. I had my parent advisory council meeting earlier today, and one of the parents asked me a question that I didn't have an answer to. They asked about the campus staffing formulas for school safety monitors, comparing middle school staffing ratios, which I think are on page 4 of this document. And if you look, maybe it's page 5, sorry, no, 4. If you look at if you pick a student ratio, let's look at the 1,400 to 1,799 one. For middle schools, you have 4 safety monitors for a campus of 1,400 to 1,799. But if you go down to high school and look at the same group under 1,799, you have 3 school safety monitors. So I'm curious what the thought process is of having fewer school safety monitors in a high school that's the same size as a middle school. My intuition would be that we would need more at the high school level, not less. So I'm wondering what the thought process is around that, and frankly, if it's possible to up the number for the high school ratios.
So I honestly cannot tell you what the rationale is, because these are the ones that we've utilized over the last couple of years without making any significant changes to them. So what we can do is clearly go and ask ourselves and compare the monitors. What are some surrounding school districts look like? What would that cost be? I can work with Dwayne to see what that would be in terms of changing those numbers. How many more monitors would that be?
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you could do that. It just makes, to me, it makes more sense that there's more at high schools than there is at middle schools, and especially for 2 schools of the same size. So, I haven't noticed it in previous years either, but when the question was asked today, I didn't have a good answer, and it made sense to me that we would have at least as many at high school for a given size as we would at the middle school level. So if we can up the high school one to match the middle school one, that'd be great.
I don't think it would be cost prohibitive. Yeah.
Do you have any concerns with that, Dwayne?
No, I was just telling we'll review it and see what we come up with, yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Trustee Mackey.
All right. Good evening, y'all, again. So first of all, before I have a couple questions, Dr. Elzala, I do want to commend you as someone who was in the district as a principal, watching the evolution of staffing formulas over the last 6 years. I know this is in conjunction with Dwayne and everybody else. To see the structure and the systems that have been put in place and the work that you've done over those 6 years is phenomenal. It's come a long way. So I just want to commend you for that, for sure. I also recognize that all of these staffing conversations come with the single largest impact to our budget, which is why these are often difficult, because if you put just even one more person at a school, it changes the amount of money drastically. So I just want to appreciate the work that you all have done with that. I do have a question. One leading off of the monitors aspect is, at the high school level, I know we do these by numbers, et cetera. Have we considered or put thought to the physical layout of some of the buildings? We have some buildings with drastic amount of different doors, different buildings, et cetera, and some that look very different and maybe don't need as many monitors. Have we looked at that in terms of monitor staffing?
From the original staffing formulas, we do not. When a principal does come forth during their during the staffing process in the spring, they can come forth and provide me with additional requests. And then, we can come back. I either work with an existing budget that we have available to make some adjustments, to make sure that we're still within comparability, that we're still, there are a lot of factors, right? But we want to have principals provide us an opportunity, if you do take a Skyline as an example, with the number of entrances that are there and the layout of that facility, as many as they would ask us for, I'm quite sure we're not going to be able to do justice to what that layout is, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't make some adjustments. So we do make some adjustments, but it hasn't been something that has been systematized that this is what we're going to do every single year, other than when I have consistency in the principalship, then I tend to make sure, okay, I know at Skyline, this is what we're going to do, and we'll incorporate that when we begin the process. But we can certainly add that in specifically with regard to, because I wouldn't want to say that I've done it just based on building size. There could be some other factor that a principal would come to me.
Okay, thank you for that. I think it's worth definitely considering as we go forward. I know you do that already. As far as counselors, that's the one thing that I draw my mind to, and I looked at. I thank you for providing all of that detailed document on that. Can you give a little bit of an overview? I know we talked a little bit about this, but just one more time for me, of the progress we've made in terms of counseling ratios, et cetera, and kind of where we've gotten to this number now.
So when I became the chief in December of 2016, was it 2015? It was 2015. Time flies. Elementary campuses that were not at 450 had a 0.5 counselor and a 0.5 assistant principal. So we went and changed that to go to 1, whether they're at 300 or whether they're at 400. Full-time counselors, full-time assistant principals at those campuses as part of the staffing formula. So, of course, college access providers have been added at the high school level, which I didn't incorporate in any of these, and I go back and forth to some extent. They have a caseload of students. I could easily add them in because they do provide direct services to students, and that would lower the number of students to counselor or advisor per se. So there's been, as you can tell just by that example, that we've doubled, if you will, the number of counselors and assistant principals at the elementary level. With that, most school districts, and I did have a little bit of time to poll, I can't find a school district that at 675 generates another counselor. And when I say another district, I look both at surrounding districts who are not very similar to us, but I also then looked at Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin. At Austin, as an example, between 0 and 799 at an elementary school, you get 1. In Dallas ISD, if you hit 674, because that's 1.49, you get the second. So there were 3 outliers that you and I discussed previously, Trustee Mackey, and those were, as we've discussed, there were outliers from the perspective of the projections did not match. We had more students at those campuses than where it's projected, and it put them into that realm where had that projection, the actuals been the projection, yes, they absolutely would have qualified for that additional counselor. There were 3. Those 3 were Brashear Elementary, Guzik, and Lanier. So while they're over, they're still way under what any other school district that I could find has. So it is, again, certainly I would hope with all the conversations everyone understands, had the projection been there, that we would have provided that additional counselor. we'll continue to work with the staff at the campus. If they're feeling like they need some additional resources, we can certainly get creative to see what we might be able to provide from our existing staff and our existing budgets to work with them.
I appreciate that. I also noticed in looking at the document, one thing that I was really excited to see is that when I did the average of all the ACE schools, the counseling ratio is 1 to 245, which is actually below the national standard, which is phenomenal. I think that's an example of what equity looks like when we talk about staffing. This may be, I've only been on the board for a few months. My question is, why do we have, given that staffing is a huge component of the budget, I remember the first thing we did when I came on the board was talk about the budget in June, and we do all of that and talk about where we're allocating money. Why is this conversation, anyone from the district can answer, why is this conversation separate from a lot of those decisions, since this is the majority of the budget? And how do we align those two to be able to have the same conversation about staffing in conjunction with the budgeting process?
Because I have to actually start creating the staffing at the campus level so that we can begin hiring. And so this has to come, I mean, we set up all our master schedules, as you know, so that's going to be, we just do our projection. As a matter of fact, we just, looked at what the projections are going to be. We start doing that at the campus level. What does that create? How many FTEs does each campus have? Where's your master schedule? And so it's because of the time frame involved in ensuring that the campuses get to have enough time to create a master schedule with the projections that we can build then a budget around.
Okay.
And if I may, this is the actual, one of the first steps in building the budget for next year. So once this is laid in place, we have the student projections, we can then run our staffing, so and others are free to start hiring. So this is one of the first steps of the budget process for next year.
And also, I may add, many years ago, when we had very little in reserve, we had to be very conservative and wouldn't allow any wiggle room. But now that our financial picture has improved, we had some conversations about making we have a little bit more wiggle room. If a district has very little reserve or very little fund balance, the staffing is going to drive everything, even though you don't even know what your revenue is going to be until the spring. But you know that a lot of your expenditures are going to be on teachers and staff members. And so, and you try to hire as many teachers that are available in April for the following year, but all of that is driven by the formulas and your projected enrollment. We had a big conversation at our chiefs meeting today about what number are we going to use for enrollment projection for next year, because that's the first driver, and then we plug these numbers in. But budgeting starts in the fall for the following year.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, especially from a practical standpoint. I just think I would like to see us when we talk about the budget, when we're talking about that, maybe it's not for the current year, but thinking about this as a component of the budget and having that discussion about what if we do really place a value on increasing some of these ratios or decreasing the ratios, et cetera, as part of a trade-off with the other programmatic aspects. I think that's a viable conversation that we should consider, even if it's not for the current year because of all those practical reasons. But again, appreciate your work in putting all this together.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson.
It's Trustee Mackey and Trustee Marshall really covered a lot of things that I was going to say, but I wanted to ask you, could you send me the formula that we use for our campus monitoring? It's what? How many campus monitors gave? We have close to 1,300. So.
I can show you what page it's on separately, Trustee Johnson, if you like, so I can show.
Okay, I think, is this where it says 1 to 599? Gotcha. Okay, so it's 1,000 to 1,399, 3 campus monitors.
Which page, are you looking at the middle school or you're looking at the high school?
I think this is the high school.
Okay.
Is this the high school?
Are you on page 4?
Yep.
Yeah, this is middle school.
Okay.
And so a campus that has 599 or less gets 1 monitor.
Right.
A campus that's between 600 and 999 and so on.
Okay.
Now, these are separate from our licensed officers, because at all of our secondary schools, we have officers. So
Right.
this is not This is in addition to.
Addition to the officers?
Correct.
Right. And most of our campuses have 2 officers.
Most of them have one licensed
One
and
licensed
one,
and
and
one-
one school resource officer.
Right. Okay, and I know we can talk offline, because when I went into one of our campuses, and they only have 2, and they're using TAs for campus monitoring. So I want to talk to you about that offline. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Mitchell.
Well, thanks. I requested at the briefing some benchmarking data, and you did provide it. I actually found it in the very small fine print at the bottom. Yes, I did find it, and you know those counseling ratios are always shocking. Even when we're doing a whole lot better than the national and state averages, they're still shocking. So that data showed that the national average is, I believe, 455 to 1, and the state average was 442 to 1, and
We're at
370.
370.
370. That still seems really, an outrageous ratio. And I'm wondering, how we put in extra counselors in the ACE program because we think it's going to help, and we're doing that now in the AIM program. I'm just wondering that with a little bit of the flexibility we have now, is if we can find, 2 schools that are apples to apples on just about everything else, and see what happens if we actually staff one of them with 2 extra counselors, and see if there's any difference in performance of the schools. If you can get, with 150 elementary schools, there has to be a few of them that are pretty much identical. The numbers still bother me, but I take a little bit of comfort, but not much comfort, that we're doing much better than the state and national averages. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the monitors, and if we had any benchmarking data with respect to monitors with respect to other large districts.
I didn't do that research. I certainly can do that and provide that.
I would like to see that if you can obtain it, and then if we are dramatically worse than comparable districts, then maybe we need to entertain an amendment at that time when we have all that information. I do know that no matter what you have in terms of staffing on any of these particular items, whatever it is, it's never really going to be as many people as you want. In safety and security is our most important goal. So if you added 2 more monitors to every school, someone would say, why not 3? Why not 4? So I would just like us to make sure that we are at least in sync with the other districts that are like us who are facing this problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, trustees. Trustees, will you please cast your votes?
Motion passes 9-0.
Moving on to agenda item 7.06, consider and take possible action to authorize, negotiate, and enter into agreements with recommended vendors for the purchase of audiovisual displays and related installation services for district-wide use not to exceed $35 million over 5 years, including renewal options, general operating bonds, special revenue funds. Consider item 6.32, put by trustees Foreman and Henry. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Foreman, well, trustee Marshall. And then trustee Foreman. Where's your mic? It's on. Trustee Foreman? No, that's fine.
All right, Jack, I just have a couple of questions. The first one is, and maybe purchasing needs to come up so they can tell me what the previous amount of the purchase order was for this audiovisual equipment.
Yes, ma'am, and good evening, trustees. We do have that information handy.
Okay.
The prior board document for audiovisual equipment was $10 million, and we've spent approximately 8.5 against that board document to date.
And how many years was that contract?
That contract has been in place for 2 years.
2 years. And do we have the rationale for a $35 million 5-year contract?
Yes, ma'am. As part of the long-range technology plan, we are increasing the amount of audiovisual equipment in the classrooms. You may recall that we were currently, I think, at about 25% of the classrooms included this type of AV equipment. And so many, many classrooms, even today in the school district, don't have audiovisual equipment. And so as part of our long-range technology plan, we identified a standard to install one audiovisual display in every core classroom in every school. And so that would explain the anticipated increase in spending.
Okay, and actually, the board did not vote on this long-range technology plan, so
I understand.
I have some concerns about that. But the other question is that how did you prioritize the campuses that would be receiving this equipment?
We haven't set the detailed implementation schedule yet, but I believe we would follow the same approach that we followed with the computing devices, which is going with the campuses that have the highest need first. And that is the methodology that we've been following with the student devices.
Okay. So the student devices, and some of them are one-to-one and some of them are not, according to the grade level, correct?
No, ma'am. Actually, again, our standard for student computing devices is one-to-one for all grade levels, all schools.
So do all grade levels have, and I don't want to get off into that, but do all grade levels have computing devices that they're taking home, or are they using cows?
So that is, that's a local choice. So there are some schools that have opted for take-home, and there are other schools that use the cows and keep them in a cart in the campus. So we are seeing the number of take-home schools increase this year, and I'm happy about that because it tells me that we're getting more utilization out of that technology investment.
And the last question, because I do have some concerns, there's no methodology in, excuse me, determining exactly how this is going to be allocated, and this is a large expenditure. Is any of this bond funds, or is it all out of general funds?
It's mainly bond funds, and I just want to be clear. We do have a methodology for how we'll be deploying in the schools. Again, so we will be deploying one audiovisual display in every core classroom in every school. What we haven't developed yet is our detailed implementation schedule. So we know that if this contract is this contract is approved, we'll be starting with elementary schools this year, and then, but like I said, we haven't built the detailed schedule yet. I think it would be premature since we don't even have the contract vehicle in place yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman. Trustees, could you please cast your votes?
The motion passes 7 voting yes and 1 voting no.
Moving on to agenda item 7.07, consider and take possible action to authorize, negotiate, and enter into an agreement with recommended vendors to provide building envelope and roofing services for the district not to exceed $10 million over 5 years, including renewal options, general operating bonds, special revenue funds. Consent item 6.49, pulled by trustees Foreman and Johnson. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustees, is there discussion?
Yes.
Trustee Foreman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A quick question. So what kind of insurance do the companies have for the roofing? Because we've had so many issues with roofing, so is there insurance with these contractors regarding the roofing?
Yes, ma'am, there's definitely insurance. I'm not sure what the requirements are. Does procurement know?
So when we talk about insurance, we have general liability insurance that we require for all of our vendors, but are you asking?
To insure their work, not just general liability, insuring the work, the roofing work that they're doing.
I mean, that's going to be, I think, dictated on the work that they're doing. If they're doing a patch repair, or if they're doing a complete.
So how's it insured?
Well,
So there's none.
well, they provide a warranty. Now, whether they do that through some type of insurance or just provided through their company, but they provide a 20-year warranty on labor and materials.
A 20-year warranty?
Yes, ma'am. On materials. It varies depending on, what type of roof is going in and the type of contractor, different contractors. So typically the materials are warrantied through the manufacturer of the material, and then the labor is warrantied through the actual contractor.
And that is a part of the bidding process?
Yes, ma'am.
And I only ask that question because I've been around here long enough to know that we've had some issues with roofing. And want to make sure that if I'm voting on this, is that those gaps are going to be closed.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Marshall? Trustees, please cast your votes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Agenda item 7.08, consider and take possible action to authorize Dallas Central Appraisal District to reappraise all property located within the Dallas Independent School District reappraise all property located within the Dallas Independent School District damaged by the October 20th, 2019 disaster. Consent item 6.54, pulled, new item added. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this was brought by the administration. We had notified you that it was coming at the briefing, but since it wasn't, we needed to bring you some more detail as a result of the appraisal that's going on throughout by most of the appraisal district entities. Dwayne, anything to add to that? Just take the questions that board members may have about the process.
The appraisal district is in the process of doing that because other entities have approved it. I sent you in the tracker the information on the impact. Basically, it impacts the debt service fund that we won't be able to forward pay as much as we would have, but still pay forward. The interesting portion of this, it will be for a prorated amount for this year from October 20th until the end of the year, and then for the next calendar year. So I would answer any questions that you have about that.
Trustee Marshall and Foreman.
Yeah, I just want to commend the administration for bringing this to us. I think it's, I hope all the other taxing entities in Dallas do something similar, but I'm skeptical that all will. I think this is a very appropriate and ethical response to the homes that were damaged, and I'm proud that we're willing to sacrifice the revenue to do what's right for those families that lost their homes, so thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman.
So do we know the dollar impact, the dollar amount that will impact?
The overall change in value hasn't been determined yet. We'll get that, but what I put in the estimate or the information that I sent you guys was that it was discussed that the total loss would be around $2 billion. So I just factored that in so you can see what kind of the worst case scenario would be. Obviously, some of that property is ours or isn't taxable, and so and some of it's not even in our district. So I'd expect it to be less, but I wanted to show you kind of the top end.
So the only thing I'd like to remind this district is this is not the first time a disaster has happened in this city or around this school district, and we've never taken this move before. So if it happens again, let us not forget that it's more than one part of the city that's impacted, and when other parts are impacted, we should have the same expediency about looking at these kinds of issues with the other parts of the city. I'm really glad we're doing this, but don't forget it happens in other parts of the city also.
Thank you, Trustee Foreman. Trustee Flores?
Oh, so I was just going to point out, so as our DCAT appointee, I was in the board meeting when we discussed this item, and most of the tax entities had already acted. We're like one of the very last, but that just has to do with our board cycle, not for any other reason. But yes, pretty much everybody was already on board.
Thank you, Trustee Flores. Trustee Mitchell?
I just wanted to say I totally agree with Trustee Foreman's statement. If it happens in another part of the city, we should be doing exactly the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Please cast your votes.
Trustee Mitchell. Okay. The motion passes 8-0.
Agenda item 7.09, consider and take possible action to award and enter into a contract with CZOT-MGS LLC for the new construction of the new Jillstone Elementary School, in conjunction with the bond program not to exceed $27,063,250 bond funds. Consent item 6.55, pool. New item added. Do I have an motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Administration, do you have any comments? Trustees, is there any discussion? Trustee Mitch K, followed by Marshall.
Scott, I was wondering what the ETA is for when you think the school will be open.
It's scheduled for August of 21.
Okay. Every time I visit that area, I always take what the administration says. If the administration says X, I say X plus 1. So, thank you. By the way, it was supposed to be this year, so thank you.
Okay, trustees, if there's no other questions, please cast your votes.
Motion passes 9-0.
The time is 9:50 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.